What if history isn't what we've been told? What if beneath layers of earth and myth lie the echoes of a world older and more advanced than we ever imagined? Across continents, ancient ruins stand defiant, carved with symbols no scholar can fully decipher. Massive stone structures aligned with celestial precision, built by hands we can no longer trace, in deserts, deep jungles, and beneath the ocean surface. Relics whisper of civilizations that vanished without a trace, without a war, without a plague, without explanation. Who were these people? What did they know that we have forgotten? And why do their stories seem deliberately buried, their achievements dismissed as legend? As we peel back the layers of time, one thing becomes clear. The past is not silent. It's speaking to us in riddles, in ruins, in riddled ruins, and perhaps in warnings. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the shadowy corridors of time, where truth blurs into myth. And the impossible may not be so impossible after all. Welcome to the world of mysterious, ancient, lost civilizations. High above the Pacific Ocean, the waves stretch endlessly, blue upon blue horizon melting into sky. But beneath these tranquil waters lies a mystery that has endured for over a century. A forgotten continent, or perhaps a forgotten people. On the eastern shores of Madagascar and in the volcanic highlands of India's Dean Plateau, strange fossils once stirred an unusual question in the minds of 19th century scientists. How could identical species of lemurs, fragile, land-bound creatures have existed across such vast, unconnected distances? The prevailing theories of continental drift had yet to take hold. So, one man, zoologist Philip Glader, proposed a radical idea. A lost landmass sunken deep beneath the Indian Ocean. A continent he called Lamria. At first, it was a purely geological hypothesis, a speculative bridge between scattered lands. But as the idea took root, it grew far beyond its scientific origins. Soon, Lemuria was no longer just a hypothetical continent. It was a civilization. According to esoteric traditions, most notably those found in the works of 19th century mystics, like Helen of Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society, the Lemurians were not merely inhabitants of a vanished land. They were the ancestors of humanity, spiritual beings, tall, ethereal, and highly advanced. Not in terms of technology as we know it, but in consciousness, harmony, and connection to the earth. Blavatsky described them as beings with a third eye capable of telepathy and living in deep communion with the natural world. In these accounts, Lemuria was not destroyed by war or famine, but by a great cataclysm, floods, volcanic fire, and shifting, earth swallowing their world whole. A silent erasure from history. But if such a civilization existed, where are its remnants? Curiously, whispers of Lemuria echo across several ancient traditions. Cultures separated by vast oceans in time. In Tamil folklore, there are legends of Kumari Kandam, a lost southern land where a glorious Tamil civilization once thrived before being swallowed by the sea. Some believe this to be more than coincidence, that the myth of Lemuria and the story of Kumari Kandam are one and the same. And then there is Mount Shasta in Northern California. This majestic snow-capped peak has become the epicenter of modern Lemurian lore. Since the early 20th century, stories have emerged of glowing cities hidden beneath its slopes, of mysterious beings appearing in white robes, speaking in forgotten tongues. Frederick Spencer Oliver's A Dweller on Two Planets, a book claimed to be dictated by a spiritual entity, spoke of Lemurian survivors who built a subterranean sanctuary called Taos beneath the mountain. Skeptics dismiss these stories are products of imagination and wishful thinking. No archaeological evidence of Lemuria has ever been found. No tools, no structures, no definitive traces. Mainstream science now attributes the presence of similar species on distant continents to plate tectonics, a theory supported by mountains of geological evidence, and yet the myth refuses to fade. There are curious anomalies, temples submerged off the coast of India whose stones are older than expected, unusual megalithic formations in the Indian Ocean whose origins remain uncertain, accounts from indigenous peoples that speak of ancestors arriving from the sea, bearing light and knowledge. Are these mere coincidences or scattered pieces of a larger puzzle we've yet to solve? Even in science, the map of the seafloor remains largely unexplored. More than 80% of the world's oceans are unmapped, unobserved, and unknown. Entire underwater ridges, plateaus, and trenches have only recently been discovered. Could something lie beneath, hidden by silt and time? Some researchers have pointed out that large portions of the submerged mescaline plateaus stretching between Madagascar and India show signs of having once been above sea level. Though the consensus attributes this to volcanic activity and natural geological shifts, others wonder, could these land masses be the last remnants of something older, now lost to the deep? Of course, there are no ancient texts from Lemuria, no known language, no inscriptions carved in stone. The Lemurians, if they existed, left no direct voice behind. But perhaps that's what makes the mystery so persistent. It is a canvas of silence, inviting projection, intuition, and the search for connection in an age of forgotten origins. And maybe that's the heart of the question. Why do we time and again return to stories like Lemuria? Perhaps it speaks to something deeper, a sense that we are not the first to walk this earth with purpose and wonder. That before history, there was prehistory, not of primitive chaos, but of deep sophisticated knowledge now erased or deliberately hidden. We may never find Lemuria carved into stone or etched on a map. But what if its legacy survives not in ruins, but in memory and myths, dreams, and the unconscious murmurings of distant cultures? The answers may lie far beneath the ocean or perhaps within ourselves. The question remains, was Lemuria just a myth, a beautiful fiction of lost paradise, or was it a chapter of human history, one written in water and long since washed away? As we leave behind the whispered echoes of Lemuria, submerged beneath vast oceans and drifting into legend, our journey moves west, toward the Atlantic winds where the sun sets over the ancient lands of Iberia. Here in the marshlands and river deltas of southern Spain, another enigma awaits, one rooted not in myth alone, but in fragments of written memory and forgotten wealth. This is the land of Tartessos. The Guadalquivir River glides slowly through Andalusia, its waters carrying the sediment of millennia. Somewhere, near its wide, fertile estuary, where the river meets the sea, lies a city described by Greek and Roman historians with awe and admiration. A city rich in metals, ruled by wise kings and mysteriously lost to time. The earliest mention of Tartessos appears in the writings of the Greek historian Herodotus, who spoke of a king named Eratosthenes, said to have ruled for 80 years and lived for 120, a man of vast wealth and unusual generosity who welcomed Greek sailors from Phia and supported them in their struggles. Other classical sources speak of a prosperous society with intricate laws, seafaring knowledge, and a command over metallurgy that made it a beacon of wealth in the ancient world. Yet, for all these references, Tartessos was never found. No capital, no tablets, no monumental ruins bearing its name, only scattered signs, hordes of gold artifacts buried in the earth, a few inscriptions in an undeciphered script, and faint traces of a people who seemed to rise and then vanish. So, what was Tartessos? Archaeologists generally agree that it was a native Iberian culture, likely flourishing between the 9th and 6th centuries BCE, heavily influenced by Phoenician traders who arrived from the eastern Mediterranean. The Phoenicians, famed for their maritime empire and thirst for metals, established settlements across southern Spain. Cadiz, for example, is among the oldest continuously inhabited cities in Europe, founded by Phoenician sailors around 1100 BCE. The Tartessians, it seems, had what the Phoenicians wanted: copper, silver, tin, and above all, gold. The mines of Rio Tinto in the Sierra Morena provided immense mineral wealth. Some researchers even speculate that Tartessus was the first true civilization of Western Europe, predating the classical cultures of Greece and Rome, yet culturally sophisticated in its own right. But then around the 6th century BCE, silence. The records stop. The gold disappears. The city, if it ever existed, is swallowed by the shifting landscape of time and myth. Some believe the fall of Tartessus was geopolitical, a consequence of rising Carthaginian power, pushing Phoenician allies out of Iberian trade routes. Others suggest natural causes, earthquakes, flooding, or changes in the course of the river that may have erased settlements and choked the economy. Still others wonder if Tartessus was more than just a city. Could it have been a confederation of tribes, a spiritual culture with no single capital whose memory endured only through the lens of foreign visitors? And then there are the fringe theories, speculative, yes, but persistent. Some have drawn parallels between Tartessus and Atlantis, noting that Plato's description of Atlantis, an advanced wealthy society beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, bears uncanny similarities to classical depictions of Tartessus. Was Plato referencing a distorted memory of this Iberian civilization? Or was Tartessus itself the inspiration behind the legend? In 2011, a team of researchers led by archaeologist Richard Bruin made headlines by suggesting that satellite images and geological studies had identified structures buried in the mudflats of Donana National Park, a vast marshy expanse just inland from the Atlantic coast. They believed these submerged shapes could be the remains of Tartessus, or perhaps of a culture linked to the Atlantis myth. The academic community remains cautious. No definitive proof has surfaced, but the idea rekindled interest in a region long shrouded in historical ambiguity. And there is much we still don't understand. The so-called Tartessian language, preserved in just a few dozen inscriptions, remains only partially deciphered. Its script bears resemblance to the South Iberian writing system, yet its origins and grammar are still debated. Some linguists see it as a linguistic isolate, unrelated to any known language family, hinting at a culture with unique roots distinct from its Mediterranean neighbors. Then, there are the Tartessian treasure hoards, ornate artifacts of gold and silver, many discovered buried together in ritual fashion. One of the most famous is the treasure of El Caramolo, found near Seville in 1958. An astonishing collection of bracelets, necklaces, and plates, likely ceremonial, and crafted with skill that suggests a highly developed artisanal tradition. But who buried these treasures? And why? Were they offerings to gods we no longer know? Emergency concealments before an imminent collapse? Or symbolic acts marking the end of an era? The land remains quiet. The marshes rise and fall with the tide, and the river shifts its course, as it has done for centuries. Somewhere beneath the surface, the memory of Tartessus waits, scattered in soil, half buried in legend. We are left with the fragments of a puzzle, scattered texts from ancient authors, undeciphered symbols etched in stone, golden relics that shine with forgotten purpose. Tartessus may have been a city, a kingdom, or an entire worldview, one that flourished, faded, and was absorbed into the mists of history. Or perhaps it was never one place at all, but a story told and retold across generations, growing more mysterious with each retelling. Is Tartessus the echo of a real civilization lost to politics, nature, or time? Or is it something more? A memory of a deeper past waiting patiently to be understood? The tide moves gently along the coast of Anatolia, brushing against eroded ruins that once stood as watchtowers and ports. The Mediterranean, ever shifting, carries with it not only salt and silt, but memory. Here, in the quiet rhythm of the waves, echoes linger of a cataclysm that reshaped an entire world. As we weave behind the sunken wealth of Tartessus, we turn toward a darker, more turbulent mystery. A disappearance not of a single city or kingdom, but of an entire age. Around 1200 BCE, the great powers of the Eastern Mediterranean were thriving. The Egyptians ruled from the Nile. The Hittites dominated central Anatolia, and Minoan kings presided over a network of fortified palaces in Greece. Trade flourished across land and sea. Bronze, tin, oil, wine, and knowledge moved along ancient routes in a delicate balance of power. Then, almost without warning, it collapsed. Palaces were burned, cities abandoned, languages vanished. Trade ceased. Within the span of a few decades, the Bronze Age came to a violent and enigmatic end. Who or what was responsible? Among the most persistent clues to this ancient disaster is a name found carved into stone at Medinet Habu, the mortuary temple of Pharaoh Ramses III. In a series of vivid bas-reliefs, Egyptian scribes recorded a conflict unlike any before. Massive fleets bearing strange warriors approached from the sea, bringing destruction in their wake. The pharaoh called them the Sea Peoples. They came from the north, it is said, nations unknown to Egypt. Their ships carried families as well, as fighters, oxmen, and carts among their fleets. Not raiders in search of plunder, but migrants in search of conquest or survival. The inscriptions describe fierce battles, burning cities, spears clashing on the shores of the Nile Delta, an entire population swept away. Ramses III claimed victory, but even Egypt was weakened in the aftermath. Elsewhere, the devastation was more complete. The once mighty Hittite Empire vanished from history. Ugarit, a thriving coastal city-state known for its early alphabet and trade, was reduced to ash. Its final letters are still on clay tablets, never delivered. Minoan citadels were toppled and never rebuilt. Who were these Sea Peoples? The Egyptian records list names: the Sharon, the Luca, the Peliset, the Shechelish, the Denian. Scholars have tried to match these to known groups, suggesting the Sharon may have become the Sogdians, the Peliset, the Philistines, the Denian, a distant echo of the Greek Dans, but the connections remain tentative, debated, and uncertain. Archaeology confirms the destruction. Layer after layer of blackened ruins align with the timeline of these invasions, but it offers few definitive answers about who the Sea Peoples were or what drove them to such a massive upheaval. Could it have been climate? Some researchers point to evidence of a prolonged drought across the eastern Mediterranean at the end of the 13th century BCE, crop failures, famine, and social unrest rippling through already fragile kingdoms, or earthquakes. Geological studies have revealed a pattern of seismic activity around the same time, devastating quakes that may have brought down cities before any swords were drawn. Others suggest political turmoil, civil wars, class conflict, or the breakdown of centralized authority that left societies vulnerable to external aggression. And yet, none of these theories fully explain the scale and coordination of what occurred. How could so many powerful cultures fall so quickly across such a vast region without a unifying force behind the collapse? This is where the mystery deepens. Some fringe researchers propose that the Sea Peoples were not a group of tribes or refugees, but the remnants of a fallen maritime civilization, perhaps one that existed before the known empires. A seafaring people displaced by cataclysm or internal strife, whose sudden appearance signaled not invasion, but return. Could they have come from a forgotten homeland somewhere, now submerged or erased from our maps? an Atlantis of the Levant, a Lemura of the Mediterranean. Others draw connections to cultural anomalies, advanced shipbuilding techniques, similar helmet designs across distant regions, and recurring symbols in art that hint at a shared shadowy origin. Yet, no definitive artifacts, no homeland, no clear language has ever been found. The sea peoples remain silhouettes, and like shadows, they appear only in contrast, defined by the destruction they left behind. Their legacy is not in monuments, but in absences, empty cities, lost knowledge, a great silence across the Mediterranean that lasted for centuries. When the world re-emerged into the Iron Age, it was changed. The old gods were forgotten. New powers rose, writing systems evolved, and the collective memory of what had come before faded into half-remembered myths and cryptic inscriptions. So we are left to wonder, were the sea peoples the agents of collapse or simply survivors of it? A symptom, not a cause. Did they wander the seas in desperation or as conquerors? Did they carry with them a forgotten language, a lost science, an ancient grievance? Or were they a coalition of peoples, fractured, hungry, and displaced, united only by the tides of chaos? The answers remain elusive. All that we know for certain is this: at the turning point between ages, a force emerged from the sea, swept across the known world, and disappeared into the mists of time. And somewhere beneath those same Mediterranean waves might still rest the clues we need to understand who they were and why they came. As the echoes of the sea peoples fade into the surf of the Mediterranean, we journey far across oceans and time, to a land cloaked in tropical mists and ancient silence. Here in the lowland jungles of southern Mexico, another enigma waits beneath the saba trees and thick, fertile soil. A world not of lost cities destroyed by fire or war, but of stone, carved with faces that still watch us, unblinking. This is the realm of the Olm. The air is heavy in the swamps of Veracruz and Tabasco. The heat clings to the skin. Cicadas hum a constant rhythm, and vines curl over mossy mounds that at first glance seem like natural hills. But beneath them lie the buried remnants of one of the earliest complex civilizations in the Americas. Archaeologists call the Olm the mother culture of Mesoamerica, a foundational civilization whose influence shaped the great empires to come. Teotihuacan, the Maya, the Aztec. Yet for all their importance, the Olm remain shadowy. We know little of their names, less of their words, and nothing of how they saw the world. And yet they left us something. Monuments of stone scattered across sites like San Lorenzo, Levanta, and Trezepotes. Colossal heads rise from the earth, some over 3 meters tall and weighing up to 50 tons. Their expressions are stern, serene, and almost timeless. Their helmets, distinct and uniform, suggest warriors or rulers, or perhaps something more ritualistic. How were they carved, and how were they transported across miles of rivers and dense rainforest without wheels, pack animals, or metal tools? Mainstream archaeology offers methods, large labor forces, wooden rollers, rafts, ingenuity. It's plausible. Yet, even today, the logistics challenge modern reconstruction teams. Why would a civilization undertake such monumental labor? What did these heads represent? Their facial features, rounded faces, broad noses, thick lips, have fueled speculation for decades. Some have proposed controversially that themes may have had trans-oceanic contact with distant peoples. Others argue these features are well within the range of native Mesoamerican variation. The debate continues not in heated rhetoric, but in careful studies and quiet curiosity. Beyond the heads, themes created vast ceremonial centers with pyramidal mounds, ball courts, and intricate drainage systems. At Levanta, an entire complex aligns to celestial events with buried offerings of jade, obsidian, and mica. Materials not locally sourced, suggesting a wide trade network and a deep cosmological awareness. And then there are the worn jaguars, grotesque yet sacred figures, half human, half feline, carved into altars and figurines. The jaguar was the apex predator of the region, but also something more. A spiritual intermediary, perhaps between worlds. The motif recurs again and again. Almond-shaped eyes, snarling mouths, hunched limbs. Were these gods shamans in transformation? Symbols of power, fertility, or something far older? Even their writing, or what might be written, remains cryptic. In 2006, a stone slab known as the Casca block was discovered near San Lorenzo, inscribed with a series of glyphs unlike any known Mesoamerican script. If confirmed as writing, it would predate all other known scripts in the New World. The signs repeat the suggested pattern, but no Rosetta Stone exists for translation. The slab may be a record, a ritual, or a monument to a lost tongue. It may also be the key to understanding a worldview that died with its creators. Theme collapse, like many ancient disappearances, is not fully understood. By around 400 BCE, their major centers were abandoned. Some point to environmental change, rivers, shifting course, floods, exhausted soils. Others suggest internal strife, shifts in religious ideology, or the rise of new regional powers. Their influence persisted, but the civilization itself dissolved. And yet, traces remain, not just in artifacts, but in myths. The Mesoamerican calendar, the ball game, the feathered serpent deity known as Kita or Kukulkan. These all find early echoes in Alm art. The Maya and Aztec inherited a world partially shaped by their silent forebears. But the true face of the Alm, their spoken words, their prayers, their dreams, has been lost. Or perhaps it has only yet to be uncovered. Some researchers speculate that the X may not have developed in isolation. Their use of magnetite mirrors and compass-aligned structures has led to theories of advanced geomagnetic awareness. The precision of their city planning suggests not only astronomical observation, but possibly a deeper symbolic understanding of space and time, one yet to be deciphered. More fringe interpretations propose that themes possessed forgotten knowledge of Earth energies, ley lines, or even ancient technologies that left little trace. These ideas remain outside the academic mainstream, but they persist because of one truth: the theme left behind mystery without explanation. Even now, much of what we know comes from excavation layers just beneath the surface. The what lies deeper? What structures, writings, or symbols remain sealed beneath centuries of jungle growth? And silence? Perhaps the mech speaks not in words, but in stone, in alignment, in myth? Why did a civilization so advanced for its time vanish so completely? Why did it bury its greatest treasures face down in symmetry and silence? And what might we find still hidden beneath the forest floor, waiting to awaken the memory of a culture that shaped the very roots of the New World? The mystery remains, and the jungle listens. From the humid rainforests of Mesoamerica, where colossal mech heads peer through the foliage, we now cross into an altogether different landscape, harsh, wind-battered, and sun-bleached in the heart of Central Asia, where the earth shifts from golden steppe to red desert. A once thriving world lies buried beneath the dust. Here, in the shadows of the Pamero Mountains and along the ancient arteries of the Silk Road, echoes of the Sogdians still whisper across the dunes. In the ruins of Samarkand and Pangakant, faded frescoes cling to crumbling walls. Their pigments, red ochre, lapis blue, emerald green, still shimmer faintly, centuries after being hidden beneath the sand. They show banquets, dancers, merchants, and deities from many lands: Indian, Persian, Chinese, even Greek. This is no accident. The Sogdians were the cosmopolitan heartbeat of the Silk Road, a people without an empire, but with influence that spanned thousands of miles and dozens of cultures. From the 4th to the 8th century CE, they acted as intermediaries between East and West, carrying silk, spices, glass, and stories across unforgiving terrain. But they were more than just merchants. They were translators, artists, priests, and diplomats. They spoke many languages, worshipped many gods, and maintained a remarkably fluid identity, one that both adapted to and shaped the empires around them, and then they vanished. What happened to the Sogdians? The mainstream historical narrative tells us that Sogdian cities were gradually absorbed into larger empires, first by the expanding reach of the Islamic Caliphate, later by the Mongols. Their language, Sogdian, a vibrant Eastern Iranian dialect once used across Central Asia and even in Chinese court documents, disappeared by the 10th century. Their religion, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, and forms of Manism gave way to Islam. Their cities fell silent. Their names were forgotten. But the traces they left behind suggest a more complex story, one that resists tidy conclusions. Archaeologists working in Mount Mog, a remote Indian fortress in present-day Tajikistan, uncovered letters written on silk and wood. Documents of trade, war, and longing. One letter dated to the early 4th century CE describes the collapse of the once flourishing city of Liang in China and the economic panic that followed. These are not dry records. They are human voices from a lost world. Even more intriguing are the vivid murals at Paya Kent. In one room, the Sogdian vision of the afterlife is depicted not as a single doctrine, but as a synthesis. Buddhist bodhisattvas sharing space with Zoroastrian rituals, Greek mythic beasts alongside Central Asian legends. What belief system could hold such contradictions? Or were the Sogdians crafting something entirely new, an early form of spiritual pluralism? Their openness to foreign ideas is reflected in their art and in their adaptability. Sogdian merchants settled in cities far from their homeland, from Xi'an in China to MV in Turkmenistan in the Chinese capital during the Tang dynasty. Sogdians held positions of power as musicians, diplomats, and military commanders. They built Zoroastrian fire temples, hosted feasts, and influenced Chinese fashion with their distinctive style. And yet, despite this widespread presence, the Sogdians had left few monuments of the empire. No great pyramids, no conquering armies, no grand capital. They were everywhere and nowhere. Could this elusiveness be part of the mystery? Some scholars have suggested that the Sogdians developed a unique cultural code, a mercantile worldview, that prioritized mobility, diplomacy, and subtle influence over domination. This may have made them resilient for centuries, but also fragile in the face of sweeping ideological change. When the Caliphate brought Islam to Central Asia, those Sogdians who did not convert may have simply faded. And yet their cultural DNA persists. The medieval Persian epic Shain makes reference to the Sogdian city of Samarkand as a land of wisdom. And magic. Chinese records speak of their strange feasts and energetic dances. In Buddhist caves at Dunhuang, Sogdian script is found alongside Sanskrit and Chinese. Their language may have died, but their fingerprints remain on the map of human exchange. Some French theorists go further. They speculate that the Russians may have been heirs to a much older, now lost Central Asian civilization, perhaps connected to the fabled Bactrian or even Arada cultures spoken of in ancient epics. Could their linguistic diversity, their advanced trade networks, and their religious syncretism have stemmed from a deeper root, one that predates written history? There are even those who draw parallels between Stein cosmology and Tibetan or early Indo-European mythologies, pointing to shared motifs, winged beings, cosmic mountains, sacred rivers, coincidence, or evidence of a long-forgotten cultural continuity. Others question whether their sudden disappearance was purely political. Some Sudan sites show signs of abrupt abandonment, Fortresses built with care were left unfinished. Temples sealed, inscriptions half-carved. Was this the result of war, disease, forced migration? Or was there something else, something not yet understood about the world they inhabited? A knowledge lost along the Silk Road. Today, the Sogdians are remembered primarily through fragments, murals in museums, words and footnotes, ruins in the dust. But piece by piece, a fuller picture is emerging. One of the people who navigated the currents of history with rare sophistication, and who may have held keys to a different way of being in the ancient world. What does it mean for a civilization to thrive through connection, not conquest? To be remembered not for its monuments, but for its movement, its art, its adaptability. And if the Sogdians truly mastered the art of living between worlds, what else might they have known about culture, about belief, about humanity, that we have yet to rediscover? The Silk Road still whispers and somewhere along its windswept paths, the secrets of the Sogdians may still be waiting to speak. From the windswept deserts of Central Asia and the fading trails of the Silk Road, we now descend into a very different world, lush, green, and suspended in mist. Deep within the northeastern highlands of Peru, where steep cliffs plunge into valleys veiled in perpetual cloud, another forgotten civilization quietly endures in stone and legend. This is the land of the Chachapoya, the so-called Cloud People. The air here is damp and still. Dense foliage rustles with the unseen movement of birds and animals. The canopy above lets through only fractured sunlight, dappling the moss-covered paths with soft golden light. In this high-altitude jungle at elevations of over 2,000 meters, the ruins of Kuala rise like a fortress, built to defy time itself. Massive stone walls up to 20 meters high surround the citadel, enclosing more than 400 circular dwellings, covered now in vines and orchids. These structures once housed a culture that lived among the clouds. Unlike the grand symmetry of Inca architecture, Chachapoya stonework is rougher, more organic, yet still meticulously placed. Within the walls, archaeologists have found carved friezes of zigzags and animal motifs, and the remains of ceremonial plazas that hint at rituals long forgotten. Who were the Chachapoya, and why did they build so high in terrain so difficult? Historical chronicles, especially those of Spanish conquistadors, tell of a fierce and independent people. The Inca called them Sacrera, often translated as savages or brave ones, and they resisted Inca conquest for decades. Only in the late 15th century did they fall under Cusco's dominion, and even then, they remained a distinct and uneasy subject within the Inca realm. But long before the Inca ever arrived, the Chachapoya had carved out their world in the cloud. Forests thought their settlements were scattered across mountaintops and cliffsides, hidden, defensible, and elevated above the dense, impassable jungle below. Why this preference for altitude? Was it for strategic reasons, for agriculture, for spiritual closeness to the sky? Some researchers suggest that the Chachapoya saw the clouds not just as weather, but as sacred in many Andean cultures. The mountains were living entities, apis or mountain spirits, and the clouds were their breath. Perhaps by living among the mist, the Chachapoya believed they were closer to their gods, or even part of them. The literary practices add another layer to the mystery. In remote cliff faces, often accessible only by narrow ledges or ropes, the Chachapoya placed sarcophagi, anthropomorphic coffins made of mud, stone, and plaster, shaped like standing figures with serene faces and crossed arms. These sarcophagi gaze out over the valleys as if watching, waiting. Some of these burial sites, such as Karagia, remain intact, precariously perched above sheer drops. Others have been lost to landslides, earthquakes, or looting. Inside, archaeologists have discovered not only mummified remains, but offerings of textiles, pottery, and sometimes even entire families together. What compelled the Chachapoya to bury their dead in such inaccessible places? Was it to protect them from desecration? Or did they believe the spirits of the ancestors needed to remain elevated between the earth and sky? The mummification techniques themselves are sophisticated. Bodies were desiccated naturally in the dry mountain air, then wrapped in layers of finely woven cloth. In some cases, faces were painted and the knees drawn to the chest, a fetal position, perhaps symbolizing rebirth. Strikingly, many of the mummies discovered here are remarkably well preserved despite the humid environment. Their skin is intact, their hair still present even after centuries. How did the Chachapoya achieve this level of preservation without the tools or materials used in other famous mummification traditions? As scientists continue to examine these remains, another question arises. Who exactly were the Chachapoya? Some colonial accounts describe them as unusually tall and fair-skinned. Chronicler Pedro César de Leon wrote in the 16th century that they were whiter and more beautiful than other people of the region. These descriptions have fueled speculation, some grounded, others more fringe, about their origins. Could they have been migrants from the Amazon, survivors of an earlier forgotten wave of settlers from the north? Or perhaps even descendants of shipwrecked travelers from across the Atlantic? Mainstream historians caution against reading too much into these accounts. The Spaniards may have exaggerated or misinterpreted what they saw. Skin tone in indigenous populations varies widely, and height can be influenced by diet, not just genetics. Still, the idea that the Chachapoya may have had distinct cultural or genetic roots lingers. Archaeogenetic studies are beginning to piece together clues suggesting links between Chachapoya remains and other Andean populations. But the data is sparse. Too much has been lost to time, conquest, and the jungle itself. Today, Quap is often referred to as the Machu Picchu of the North, but the comparison is inadequate. Quap is older and perhaps stranger. Its walls are not just offensive. They're symbolic, protective of a worldview we do not yet fully understand. Other sites, still unexplored, lie hidden beneath the forest canopy. Satellite imagery reveals geometric patterns in the vegetation, subtle depressions in the land, hints of structures that remain unexcavated. What lies beneath the moss and soil? Entire villages, temples, something entirely unexpected. Despite centuries of obscurity, the Chachapoya legacy persists in oral traditions. In the bones of their cities and in the silence of the mountains, they were not a great empire, not builders of vast roads or golden palaces, but their knowledge of their land, their resilience in harsh terrain, and their sacred relationship to the clouds set them apart. Why did they choose to live at the edge of the sky? What knowledge did they hold of life, death, and the spaces between that we've only begun to glimpse? And as the mist drifts once more across the mountains, what secrets might still lie veiled within the forests, waiting for a question, just the right one, to bring them back into the light? The cloud forests remain silent, but the stones remember. From the cloud-wrapped peaks of northern Peru, where the Chachapoya once lived between earth and sky, we now drift westward far across the Atlantic Ocean to a chain of volcanic islands standing alone in the vastness. Here in the Canary Islands, wind-swept ridges and black volcanic plains meet sun-drenched coastlines and steep ravines. This is a place of contradiction, harsh yet beautiful, remote yet strangely central to ancient seafaring speculation. And long before these islands became a stop for European exploration, they were home to a people whose origins remain one of the Atlantic's most persistent enigmas, the Guanches. The landscape of Tenerife is breathtaking and alien. Towering over the island, Mount Teti, a stray volcano in the highest peak in Spain, looms like a slumbering sentinel. Its slopes, now popular with tourists, were once sacred ground. The Guanches, believed the mountain to be a divine axis, an abode of spirits, a place of both reverence and fear. The dry, rocky terrain offered little in the way of comfort or abundance, yet the Guanches adapted with ingenuity, developing a pastoral and spiritual culture in isolation. When the Spanish arrived in the 15th century, they found a people unlike any they had encountered before. The Guanches were tall, fair-skinned, with light eyes and straight or wavy hair. They wore garments made from goat skins and lived in caves or simple stone dwellings. But what surprised the Europeans most was not their appearance, but the fact that they had seemingly no knowledge of boats. How could people come to inhabit these islands without seafaring technology? How did they arrive, and from where? The prevailing academic theory holds that the Guanches were descended from Berber populations in North Africa, likely migrating from the mainland sometime in the first millennium BCE. Linguistic traces as well as similarities in burial customs and certain cultural elements support this connection. It's believed that once they arrived, they became completely isolated, losing all contact with the outside world, and with it the ability to build or navigate seafaring vessels. And yet, the enigma deepens. Some islands in the Canary Archipelago, such as El Hierro and La Palma, are separated by stretches of treacherous sea, hard to cross even with modern boats. Could early settlers have reached them without sustained navigational knowledge? Or were these crossings once common, remembered in oral traditions now lost? The Guanches themselves had no written language, at least none that survives. All that remains of their voice are fragments, words preserved by Spanish chroniclers, carvings on stones, and the eerie remnants of literary rites. They mummified their dead using methods remarkably sophisticated for a society cut off from known centers of medical or embalming practice. Bodies were eviscerated, desiccated with herbs, and wrapped in animal skins, then placed in remote caves, sometimes in elevated locations overlooking the sea. The best preserved of these mummies have astounded scientists. Skin, teeth, even hair have remained intact for centuries in the dry cave-protected climate. Some of the remains show signs of cranial deformation, a practice seen in various ancient cultures worldwide, from the Mayans to the Egyptians. Was this a coincidence, parallel evolution of ritual, or something else? Then are the pyramids of Gimmer, step-like stone structures located in the eastern part of Tenerife. Long dismissed as simple agricultural terraces, they've since attracted renewed attention. Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl believed they bore a striking resemblance to pyramids in Mesoamerica and Egypt, suggesting they may be remnants of ancient transatlantic contact. Mainstream archaeologists tend to reject these comparisons, arguing that the structures likely date from the 19th century. Yet the alignment of some of these pyramids to the solstices and the precision of their construction have raised questions that remain unanswered. Were the Guanches astronomers? Did they observe celestial cycles as part of their belief system? Or are we simply projecting meaning onto stones shaped by chance and necessity? The Guanche religion centered around a pantheon of natural forces and deities. Chief among them, a shaman, Askai god, and Gaota, a demonic figure said to live within Mount Tita, releasing fire and smoke when enraged. Their cosmology suggests a people profoundly attuned to the natural world, interpreting volcanic activity, wind, and sea not as environmental hazards, but as expressions of divine will. There is little written about Guanche philosophy, but their legacy endures in the spiritual practices and place names of the islands. Even today, some Canarians speak of the Old Ones with a quiet reverence, as though their presence, though distant, is not entirely gone. Genetic studies have confirmed a Berber lineage, but with unique mutations suggesting long isolation and genetic drift. Intriguingly, Some of their DNA markers have also shown up in populations as far north as Iberia and even parts of Atlantic Europe. Is this a coincidence, or could it point to forgotten migrations and deeper connections across prehistoric seaways? There are also more speculative ideas, unproven but persistent. Some fringe theorists propose that the Guanches were the remnants of Atlantis or survivors of a forgotten Atlantic culture that once bridged continents. Others see in them the echoes of Proto-European peoples, perhaps seafarers who lost their way millennia ago and made a life on these remote islands cut off from their origins. We may never know the full truth. By the end of the 15th century, the Spanish conquest had all but erased Guanche society. Their language faded, their customs suppressed, their population decimated by disease and violence. What remains are fragments, tools, bones, myths, and questions. Why did the Guanches forget the sea? Or did they never know it at all? What stories did their priests tell about top-high slopes beneath the skies awash with stars? And in the silence of their forgotten tombs, perched high above crashing waves, what ancient knowledge might still lie waiting, buried, but not lost? The wind moves through the ruins now, whispering a language no one speaks. Yet the land remembers. And in that quiet, the mystery endures. As the Atlantic winds fall silent over the Guanche tombs of the Canary Islands, we turn our gaze eastward, far across deserts and steppes to the vast, undulating heart of Central Asia. Here, in the windswept plains of modern-day Kazakhstan, ancient stones cast long shadows on the earth, their precise alignments whispering secrets older than history itself. We enter the domain of the Tasmola culture, a Bronze and early Iron Age society that left behind no great cities, no written texts, but something else entirely, a sacred geometry. Etched into the land, the Kazakh steppe stretches endlessly, rolling hills and valleys painted in hues of golden rust, broken only by scattered rocks and the flight of a lone eagle overhead. In this vast silence, the monuments of the Tasmola culture appear like ripples in time. Mysterious stone alignments, burial mounds, and double-ringed structures, some of them thousands of years old. They are known collectively as the Tasmola complexes, named after a village where the first such sites were studied in the 1950s. At first glance, these formations might seem like little more than arrangements of stones weathered and eroded by time. But taken together, their pattern is striking. Hundreds of these sites are distributed across central Kazakhstan, stretching for miles in linear or circular arrangements. Many consist of two concentric rings, a larger outer circle and the smaller inner one, connected by a central stone path or channel almost like an axis. And always there is a burial mound nearby, marking the resting place of someone significant. But who were the people who built these enigmatic formations? Archaeological evidence suggests that Tasmola culture thrived between the 8th and 6th centuries BCE, during the transitional period from the late Bronze Age into the early Iron Age. They were likely nomadic pastoralists moving with the herds, living close to the rhythms of the land. And yet their monuments speak of permanence, of rituals that required planning, labor, and above all intention. Many of the sites are aligned with celestial bodies. Recent satellite analyses have revealed that several structures seem oriented towards sunrise or sunset at the solstices, while others track lunar cycles or mark significant points on the horizon. Could these be ancient observatories used to chart the movement of stars to mark sacred times of the year? Mainstream archaeologists interpret these alignments as ceremonial in nature, part of a literary cult devoted to ancestors or sky deities. But even among more conservative scholars, there is an acknowledgement that the astronomical precision is too consistent to be accidental. So we are left with questions. What knowledge did these nomads possess? Who taught them to read the sky with such accuracy? The burial sites themselves reveal more layers. Excavations of Tasmolans. The mounted tombs have uncovered bronze daggers, ornate jewelry, horse remains, and rich textiles. These were clearly individuals of status. Some were buried with their heads facing specific directions, perhaps linked to cosmological beliefs or reincarnation myths now lost. Others appear to have undergone elaborate rites of passage with animal sacrifices, marking their journey into the next world. DNA analysis shows the Tasmola people belong to a genetically mixed population with links to both Western steppe herders and Eastern Eurasian groups. This aligns with their location, astride of what would eventually become the great artery of East-West exchange, the Silk Road. But in their time, the road was still unwritten, the cities unborn. Still, the Tasmola people moved between worlds, and their culture reflects that hybridity. And then there is the mystery that modern technology has deepened rather than solved. In recent years, satellite imagery and drone surveys have uncovered a hidden dimension to these steppe monuments. From the air, the full shape of many sites becomes visible for the first time. Geoglyphs, vast shapes etched into the earth, sometimes stretching for hundreds of meters. Crosses, rings, and other geometric forms appear when viewed from above, unnoticeable from ground level. Some of these shapes echo motifs found in other parts of the world. The Nazca lines of Peru, for example, or the megalithic enclosures of Gobechi. But unlike those sites, the Tasmola geoglyphs seem disconnected from any known written tradition or surviving mythology. They are mute and yet precise, carved with a purpose that no one has yet deciphered. Were these markings ritual paths, celestial calendars, territorial markers, or part of an even more esoteric language of symbols known only to their creators? Speculation abounds. Some fringe researchers have proposed that the Tasmola structures could be evidence of ancient contact with advanced civilizations, lost cultures that once traversed Eurasia, leaving cryptic signatures behind. Others suggest these people may have had a deep intuitive science passed down orally, encoded in story and rite rather than written record. But again, the stones do not answer. There is no Rosetta Stone for the Tasmola, no code to unlock their worldview. And yet, they invite us to imagine, to question. In a world dominated by material records, texts, ruins, artifacts, the Tasmola left behind shapes and alignments, positioned with care under the open sky. Their silence paradoxically speaks volumes. Why were so many of these monuments aligned to the solstice or lunar standstill? Did these people understand the passage of celestial time in ways we've only begun to reconstruct? And what stories once passed between the stars and the firelit circles of the steppe? Stories now lost to wind and soil. As the light fades over the Kazakh plains, the stones cast long, elegant shadows, and in that stillness, unmoving, unbroken, we sense the trace of a people who watched the heavens, mapped the earth, and left behind a quiet riddle for future generations to find. A riddle not yet solved and perhaps never fully understood. From the whispering winds of the Central Asian steppe, we shift southwest where the Asian Sea glistens under a sun that has watched empires rise and fall for millennia. Here in the rugged hills of the Peloponnese, behind colossal walls of stone and myth lies a world once considered legend. The citadel of Mycenae. Massive, imposing, and silent, the ruins of Mycenae still crown a rocky outcrop like a watchful sentinel. The Lion Gate, carved around 1250 BCE, stands as the most iconic remnant. Stone portal flanked by two upright lionesses, whose presence is as symbolic as it is mysterious. Who passed beneath this gate? What knowledge and power did this ancient kingdom once wield? The Minoans were not simply a warlike tribe of the Greek mainland. They were the architects of a civilization that flourished from roughly 1600 to 1100. BCEE leaves behind palaces, tablets, golden tombs, and above all, enigmas. They are the Greeks before Greece, the first culture on European soil to speak a recognizable form of the Greek language recorded in a script known as Linear B. And yet, despite this early advancement, so much remains shrouded in obscurity. Their cities, Sini, Turin Pius, were complex, fortified, and politically organized. The shaft graves discovered by Heinrich Schlien in the 19th century revealed an astonishing level of wealth. Death masks of hammered gold, weapons inlaid with exotic materials, and delicate jewelry that suggested extensive trade connections. The so-called Mask of Agamemnon, though debated in authenticity and identity, has become a symbol of a civilization once thought to exist only in Homer's poetry. But were the Minoans the very same people who fought in the Trojan War? Did Agamemnon, Achilles, and Odysseus truly walk these halls? Mainstream scholars acknowledge that while Homeric epics were composed centuries after the collapse of Mancunian civilization, they likely preserve fragments of real memories, echoes of actual events. Transmitted through oral tradition. The burning of Troy, confirmed by archaeological strata at Hisarlik, aligns curiously with the timeline of the Mancunian world's decline. And therein lies the mystery. For a society so advanced, one with writing, engineering, and a robust maritime economy, the fall of the Minoans was swift, dramatic, and poorly understood. Around 1200 BCE, the palatial centers across Greece were abandoned or destroyed. Bios, Thebes, Messene, once vibrant hubs of power, were reduced to rubble. Linear B writing vanished. Trade collapsed. For centuries afterward, Greece entered what historians have called a dark age. What happened? Several theories attempt to explain the collapse. Some cite internal strife, perhaps dynastic wars or civil unrest. Others blame natural disasters, earthquakes, drought, crop failure. There is also evidence of foreign invasion. And here the threads begin to entangle with other mysteries. Records from Egypt, particularly the mortuary temple of Ramses III at Meden and Habu, speak of the enigmatic sea peoples, maritime raiders who devastated the eastern Mediterranean at the exact time the Minoans fell. Were the sea peoples outsiders, or dislocated fragments of former powers like Mycenae itself? Could the Minoans have been both victims and participants in this regional upheaval? A domino collapse in a once-connected Bronze Age world. The mystery deepens when we consider the Minoan relationship with their predecessors, the Minoans. Based on the island of Crete, the Minoans developed linear, built labyrinthine palaces like Nous, and seemingly had a more peaceful maritime culture. The Minoans adopted many of their artistic and religious elements after the Minoan decline. But were they merely successors or agents of conquest? Even the architecture of Mycenae hints at something greater. The massive Cyclopean walls, so named, because later Greeks believed only giants could have moved such stones, remain a marvel. Each block weighs several tons. No mortar holds them together. How did these Bronze Age builders manage such feats? And what of their tombs? Tholo structures like the treasury of Atraus, vast corbelled chambers cut into hillsides with mathematical precision. Their acoustics are uncanny, their dimensions imposing. Were they merely burial places, or did they serve some ritual function now lost? Despite Linear B being deciphered, much of it consists of bureaucratic records, lists of offerings, inventories of goods. Nowhere do we find Mayan mythology written down. No origin myths, no philosophical texts. Their beliefs, their worldview remain elusive, visible only through iconography, burial rites, and indirect cultural inheritance. Could they have held sacred knowledge that was never written, passed? Instead, through spoken tradition, a cosmology preserved in ritual, music, or movement, now vanished in recent decades. Some researchers have suggested that Mycenae's decline was not simply a fall, but a transformation. That instead of disappearing, the Mycenaean elite may have merged into the evolving Greek cultures that emerged centuries later. Perhaps their bloodlines, stories, and even philosophies lived on, embedded in the later myths, reshaped and recast into legend. Others wonder, could Mycenae, like other ancient sites, sit at the top of something even older? Mythology tells of earlier ages of titans and great floods, of civilizations long forgotten, even by the Greeks themselves. Some fringe theorists propose that Mycenae was not the beginning of Greek culture, but a reawakening of knowledge from an even deeper past. They point to the uniformity of megalithic architecture around the world, suggesting a now lost legacy of advanced prehistoric engineering. Though these ideas remain speculative, they do echo a persistent feeling among visitors that there is more to these stones than meets the eye. The wind still moves through the ruins of Mycenae, rustling the olive trees sweeping over the carved stones where kings once walked. The lions above the gates still stare in silence. And so we ask, what truly caused the fall of the Minoan world? Was it war or weather or something altogether different? What knowledge did they possess about the stars, the gods, the soul that we have yet to recover? And how many of their stories still sleep beneath the stones? As we leave behind the sun-scorched stones of Mycenae, where kings once walked and myths were born, our journey takes us inland, far from the seas, into the heart of the Balkan Peninsula. Here in the rich alluvial plains around the Danube River lies a quieter mystery, one not of gold masks or epic wars, but of clay tablets, strange symbols, and a forgotten order that predates written history. Buried beneath layers of time and soil near the village of Vinca, just outside modern-day Belgrade in Serbia, archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary in the late 19th century. Shards of finely decorated ceramics, anthropomorphic figurines, and most enigmatic of all, a series of inscribed symbols etched onto clay more than 7,000 years ago. These symbols, geometric, repetitive, almost mathematical, became known as the Vinca script, and their presence sparked one of the great debates in European archaeology. Were these marks mere decorations, or could they represent something far more profound, a lost system of writing, potentially the oldest known in the world? The Vinca culture, dating from around 5,700 to 4,500 BCE, flourished in what is now Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and parts of Bosnia. Long before the rise of Mesopotamia or Egypt, this Neolithic society built sprawling settlements, practiced metallurgy, and exhibited a sophistication that continues to challenge assumptions about prehistoric Europe. Excavations at sites like Vincabello Berno, Tartaria, and Plink reveal urban-like planning. Homes laid out in rows, some with multiple rooms, ovens, and even signs of indoor plumbing. Artifacts suggest trade over long distances. The Vinca people were among the earliest known to smelt copper, predating the traditionally recognized Copper Age by centuries. And yet, despite these achievements, they left behind no temples, no palaces, no monuments to rulers. Unlike their contemporaries in the Near East, the Vinca people seem to live without clear evidence of centralized power or a warrior elite. What kind of society was this? The figurines they left behind, countless human-like statues with elongated heads, almond-shaped eyes, and poised gestures, have become symbols of the mystery itself. Some resemble humans, others are more abstract. Were they gods, ancestors, teaching tools, or mere art? And then there are the Tartaria tablets found in Romania in 1961, which remain among the most controversial objects in Neolithic archaeology. Small clay and covered with symbols that bear a startling resemblance to later Sumerian cuneiform. These tablets have been dated, depending on the method, to as early as 5,300 BC. If accurate, This would make them older than any known writing. In Mesopotamia, could the Vinca culture have developed a form of protoporting independently? Mainstream scholars remain cautious. Many argue that the symbols may have been non-linguistic, used for ritual, ownership, or communication, but not representing full language. Others suggest the similarities to Sumerian signs are coincidental or overstated. Still, a growing number of researchers believe the Vincent signs represent something organized, intentional, and possibly linguistic. The repetition of certain symbols, the structure placement, and the fact that they appear on similar artifacts across various sites all point toward a system of meaning. If this were writing, what were they trying to say? The Vincent culture also challenges narratives about early European development. For years, Europe was thought to have lagged behind the cradles of civilization in the Fertile Crescent. Yet here, thousands of years before the pyramids, we find a people who built large settlements, developed metallurgy, created symbolic art, and perhaps even devised a scriptod. So why did they vanish? By around 4500 BCE, the Vinca culture disappears from the archaeological record. Some suggest environmental degradation over farming or deforestation. Others propose that shifts in climate or rivers may have forced abandonment. And there are theories still debated about invasions from steppe tribes, who brought with them the Indo-European languages and different social structures. The archaeological record shows a stark transition. The peaceful, intricate world of Vinca gives way to more hierarchical, warrior-driven societies. The symbols vanish. The figurines are no longer made. The copper furnaces go cold. Did they simply dissolve into the cultures that followed? Or were they wiped out, conquered, or assimilated into oblivion? Even more provocative are those who look to the figurines themselves and see echoes not of terrestrial humans, but of beings altogether different. The large heads, wide eyes, and delicate fingers have led some fringe theorists to speculate about extraterrestrial contact or lost knowledge inherited from antediluvian civilizations. While such theories stretch far beyond the realm of academic consensus, they reflect a real and persistent unease that something about the Vinca culture feels too advanced, too refined to fit neatly within the standard timeline of Neolithic development. And so the questions multiply. How did a people with no known kings or empires manage such widespread cultural unity across vast distances? Why did they use symbols with such consistency and care if they had no writing? How did they discover copper, metallurgy so early? And why did it not spark a more aggressive technological leap? The silence of the Danube Plain is deep. The forests have reclaimed much of the land. But in museums, storerooms, and private collections, the Vinca artifacts remain silent, enduring witnesses to a lost chapter of European history. We still do not know what they were saying. Perhaps we never will. But perhaps, just perhaps, some part of their message still lingers, waiting to be read, not in script or artifact, but in the patterns of history itself. And so we wonder, what else lies buried beneath the soil of forgotten Europe? What might still be sleeping beneath the fields, waiting for us to listen? From the symbolic silence of Neolithic Europe, we now cross continents to a world where massive earthen monuments rise not from stone, but from soil itself. Here, in the vast floodplains of what is now the southeastern United States, lies another enigma. Hidden not by time alone, but by the very land beneath our feet. The landscape is gentle, green, deceptively ordinary. But then, rising abruptly from the earth, a towering mound crafted with geometric precision, aligned to the sun. This is Cahokia, the heart of the Mississippian world. Located near present-day St. Louis, Missouri, Cahokia was once the center of a thriving complex society that flourished between 800 and 600 CE. At its height, it may have been home to over 20,000 people, a population rivaling that of medieval London. But unlike the stone-built cities of Europe or Mesoamerica, Cahokia leaves behind no temples of marble, no carvings in granite, only earth shaped by human hands in the pyramidal mounds, ceremonial platforms, and celestial markers. Monk's Mound, the largest of these structures, dominates the site. Over 30 meters high and covering 14 acres. It required moving millions of basket loads of earth. No beasts of burden, no metal tools, just organized human effort stretched over generations. What was its purpose? Was it a temple, a palace, a tomb? Nearby lies Wood Stonehenge, a circular arrangement of massive wooden posts carefully aligned to solstices and equinoxes. Evidence of astronomical knowledge, celestial tracking, a civilization attuned to the skies. But who were the Mississippians? Their culture spread across a vast area from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, from the Appalachian Mountains to the plains of Arkansas and Oklahoma. Despite regional differences, they shared a distinctive style. Flat-topped mounds, shell-tempered. Pottery, engraved copper, and iconography, rich in birds, serpents, and warriors. And always the river Dot, the Mississippi, and its tributaries formed the arteries of this civilization, connecting sites like Etowah, Aspiro, and Moundville in a vast network of trade, pilgrimage, and political alliance. Archaeological finds include marine shells from the Gulf, mica from the Appalachian, obsidian from the Rockies, and copper from the Great Lakes Dot. But this cultural unity raises questions. How did a civilization with no known written language maintain such wide-ranging cohesion? Who were the leaders, the architects, the astronomers? How was knowledge passed down? And what stories were told among the fires? Mississippian art offers tantalizing glimpses in finely carved stone discs, effigy pipes, and shell gorges. We see figures with wings, beings in motion, and scenes of transformation. The Birdman, a recurring motif, appears poised between earth and sky, power and ritual. Some interpret him as a shaman, others as a god, still others as a symbol of elite authority or spiritual transcendence. And then there are the anomalies dotted Spiro Mounds in Oklahoma. A burial chamber uncovered in the 1930s revealed a stunning collection of artifacts. Copper plates, pearls, masks, textiles, objects of artistic and symbolic refinement rivaling those of Mesoamerican cultures. One copper plate depicts a winged figure in dynamic posture, arms raised, feathered costume in motion. Some researchers note parallels to Mesoamerican deities or the feathered serpent iconography of the South. Did the Mississippians have contact with cultures far beyond their borders? Were these similarities coincidental, or was there a deeper, forgotten connection among the ancient peoples of the Americas? Mainstream archaeology suggests cultural diffusion via trade and pilgrimage routes. Others wonder if there were long-distance dance migrations, shared ceremonial centers, or even lost intermediaries. Civilizations that have left no record, swallowed by forests and rivers. Yet, just as suddenly as it rose, the Mississippian world began to decline. By the late 1300s, Cahokia was abandoned, its great plazas empty, its mounds weathered by wind and rain. Across the southeast, mound building ceased. The population shifted. Towns dissolved into smaller villages. Why? Some scholars blame environmental stress, deforestation, soil exhaustion, or drought. Others cite political fragmentation or the breakdown of elite control. Still others suggest that new religious movements or social upheaval led to a rejection of the old order. But a complete answer remains elusive. Oral traditions among descendant indigenous tribes, such as the Natchez, the Creek, and the Chaco, carry echoes of Mississippian cosmology, but few direct memories. The silence is profound. What's most striking is not the absence of stone or steel, but the absence of memory. A civilization that once ruled an entire continent now exists mostly in whispers beneath the grass. How could such a society so vast, in scope, so rich in artistry be so thoroughly forgotten? And what did they truly know? Were the alignments of their mounds simply practical or sacred? Were the birdman and serpent figures part of a mythology lost to time, or symbols of something more universal, embedded in a forgotten spiritual science? Even today, as radar and LIDAR reveal more mound sites hidden beneath modern cities and fields, we are only beginning to grasp the true scale of the Mississippian world. For centuries, the narrative of American history began with European arrival. But long before Columbus, Cahokia had already risen and fallen. What else lies beneath our feet? In a land where stories were once told through clay and bone, where the stars guided builders and rivers carried dreams across a continent, the echoes of the Mississippian culture still call to us, not in words, but in mounds of earth, invisible from afar, but immense when you stand upon them. And so we ask again, who were they really? What wisdom did they possess? And why, after shaping a world in silence, did they leave it just as silently? Perhaps the answer waits in the soil or in the sky. From the quiet river mounds of North America, shaped by forgotten hands and stilled rituals, we now shift to another vast landscape, a place of rolling steps and endless skies, where the winds whisper secrets over thousands of kilometers of open land. Here in the boundless grasslands stretching from the Black Sea to the borders of China, wrote a people who left behind no cities, no temples, only tombs, treasures, and traces of a vanished world. We are in the Eurasian steppe, a place both harsh and hauntingly beautiful. Golden in summer, frozen in winter, this expansive corridor of land became home to one of the most enigmatic cultures of the ancient world. The Scythians, described by the Greek historian Herodotus as fierce warriors and cunning horsemen, the Scythians, appeared suddenly around the 9th century BCE, and for nearly 500 years, they dominated the vast territories north of the Black Sea and deep into Central Asia. They left no written language, but their presence was felt far beyond their homeland, feared by empires, honored in myth, and remembered in fragments of gold. What we know of the Scythians comes largely from their burial mounds known as cairns, earthen or stone-covered tumuli scattered across the steppe. Some are modest, others monumental. When excavated, they yield astonishing finds: elaborately decorated weapons, finely tooled leatherwork, richly embroidered garments, and above all, gold worked with breathtaking delicacy into scenes of animals in combat, mythic creatures, and geometric motifs. In Pazyryk, deep in the Alai Mountains of Siberia, archaeologists uncovered frozen tombs preserved in permafrost for over 2,000 years. There they found tattooed bodies, elaborate horse trappings, and carpets woven with incredible precision. Some of the oldest known in the world, that the craftsmanship is exquisite. The iconography is striking. What do these artifacts tell us about a people who left so little written record, yet so much artistic complexity? Herodotus claimed that the Syrians drank the blood of their enemies, used scalps as trophies, and communed with the dead through elaborate rituals. But archaeological evidence paints a more nuanced picture, one of a sophisticated mobile culture with a deep spiritual life marked by shamanistic practices and a highly developed visual language. Who were they really? Were they a single unified people, or a tapestry of related tribes bound by shared symbols and lifestyles? The mainstream view describes the Scythians as Indo-European speaking nomads whose technological mastery, particularly in horse archery and metalwork, allowed them to outpace their sedentary neighbors. They developed early forms of composite bows, scale armor, and mobile tactics that baffled even the Persian Empire. Their power was not built in stone, but in motion. But beyond the historical consensus, shadows remain. In some Scythian Koreans, Bodies are buried alongside horses, weapons, and ritual objects, suggesting beliefs in an afterlife where status and identity endure. Certain graves contain anomalous skull shapes, possibly linked to cranial deformation. Practices. Others reveal traces of psychoactive substances, possibly used in ceremonial trance. What cosmology guided these rites? What visions were sought in the flicker of firelight, in the silence of the steppe night? Even more curiously, some scholars have noted parallels between Syrian iconography and distant mythologies. Stylized deer, griffins, and bird-human hybrids appear not only in Scythian art, but echo in the mythic besties of Mesopotamia, India, and China. Was this convergence mere coincidence, or does it hint at an ancient network of ideas transmitted across continents long before formal empires emerged? Then there's the mystery of their disappearance. By the 3rd century BCE, the Scythians had largely vanished from the historical stage. Their lands were overtaken by the Sarmatians and other steppe cultures, later giving rise to the Huns, Turks, and Mongols. Some Syrian groups were absorbed, others displaced, but their unique cultural fingerprint, so vivid, so distinct, faded. What happened? Was it simply the relentless churn of nomadic succession as new tribes swept across the steppe? Or did something deeper, ecological collapse, spiritual crisis, or loss of cultural coherence play a role? And what of the legends? Some early European chroniclers believed the Syrians were the ancestors of the Goths, or even linked them to the fabled lost tribes of Israel. Later, esoteric writers associated them with Atlantean survivors, carriers of an ancient wisdom passed on through hidden lineages. These claims remain speculative, often fanciful, but they point to the enduring allure of the Syrians as keepers of something older. In modern times, DNA analysis has begun to lift the veil. Genetic studies revealed that the Scythians were not a single race, but a genetically diverse population blending east and west, reflecting centuries of movement, mixing, and migration. But this too raises questions. How did such a culture maintain visual, spiritual, and artistic coherence across such genetic diversity and geographic spread? Today, standing on the silent plains of Kazakhstan or in the windswept valleys of the Altai, one can still find the outline of a burial mound, barely distinguishable from the land itself. No stone walls remain, no inscribed chronicles. And yet, beneath the soil, in chambers crafted by forgotten hands, lie clues to a world that once galloped across history, only to vanish. Who were the Scions, not merely as warriors or nomads, but as humans? What knowledge did they carry across the steppes? What songs were sung around their fires? And what might we still uncover beneath these lonely hills? Perhaps the steppe still holds its secrets, not in ruins, but in memory, waiting to be unearthed. As we leave behind the windswept steppes once traversed by the Scythian nomads, we now turn toward the sun-drenched coastlines of the eastern Mediterranean, where yet another mystery has endured for over 3 millennia. Beneath layers of sediment, ruin, and myth lie the fragmented traces of a people who have long stirred both intrigue and enigma. The Philistines. We begin in the region of modern-day Ashkelon, one of the 5 principal cities of the Philistine Pentapolis. Here the land is parched by salt-laden winds and shards of pottery, distinctively painted with geometric patterns still emerging from the earth, like silent echoes of a forgotten civilization. Their burial grounds speak of unexpected customs, and their architecture, with its imposing city gates and thick-walled fortresses, suggests a society both advanced and fortified. Yet for all their tangible remnants, the Philistines remain shadowy. What we know of them comes primarily from their enemies, especially the biblical authors of the Hebrew scriptures who depicted the Philistines as adversaries, invaders, and symbols of foreignness. But who were they really? Archaeological evidence paints a more nuanced portrait. Excavations across sites such as Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath have revealed sophisticated urban planning, industrial olive oil production, and an artistic culture that seems to reflect EG influences. Their pottery, often called Philistine Bikram bears striking resemblance to Mycenaean Greek styles, hinting at a possible origin across the sea. Could the Philistines have been migrants or refugees from the collapsing Bronze Age civilizations of the G civilizations of the Iron? Many scholars think so. Around 1200 BCE, the Eastern Mediterranean world experienced widespread upheaval. Great powers fell, Hatti, Sini, Ugarit, and in their wake came groups of marauding seafarers known collectively as the Sea Peoples. Egyptian inscriptions, particularly those of Pharaoh Ramesses III at Medinet Habu, describe a confederation of foreign invaders, among whom appear the Peliset, believed by many to be the Philistines. But if they arrived by sea, where did they come from? Crete, Anatolia, Cyprus, or were they a melting pot of displaced populations brought together by shared hardship and seafaring skill? The question remains open. There is also the matter of their language, largely lost to time. Unlike neighboring cultures, the Philistines left behind no deciphered script or literature of their own. Their spoken words have vanished, save for a few tantalizing names and phrases preserved in foreign texts. This silence leaves room for speculation. Were they speakers of an Indo-European tongue? Or did they adopt local Semitic languages as they settled? Even their religion, though partially inferred through temple remains and figurines, resists clear definition. Dion, often mentioned as a Philistine deity, may have been a Mesopotamian god repurposed or misunderstood by later writers. Other artifacts suggest cults centered on fertility or war, but the full scope of their beliefs remains obscured, just beyond the reach of certainty. And yet, for a people so often cast as antagonists, the Philistines reveal a culture rich with complexity. They introduced iron tools to the region, altering the balance of power and trade. Their artistic motifs evolved over time, blending Aegean roots with Levantan influences, and they engaged in diplomacy, warfare, and commerce with neighbors, both friendly and hostile. Still, mysteries persist. Why did they settle where they did? And how did they organize their cities with such cohesion across diverse sites? How did they rise to power so quickly in the aftermath of the Bronze Age collapse? And why, after centuries of prominence, did they disappear? By the 7th century BCE, their cities had fallen, some to the Assyrians, others to the Babylonians. Gradually, their cultural identity was absorbed, erased, or rebranded by the victors. By the time of the Persian Empire, the name Philistine had all but vanished from contemporary records. What remained was myth, memory, and mystery. Are we reconstructing a real people or a composite drawn from propaganda and fragments? Could we be misreading the evidence, projecting modern questions onto ancient migrations and alliances? Or might new discoveries, buried beneath layers of ash and stone, finally bring us closer to the truth? Perhaps the greatest riddle is not who the Philistines were, but how such once prominent people could vanish so completely, leaving behind so much and yet so little dot. So we ask again, what else lies hidden beneath the ruins of Ashkelon, Gath, or Ekron? What voices remain unheard in the silence of lost languages and broken tablets? As we continue this journey through the ancient and the inexplicable, one truth becomes clearer with each step. History remembers only what survives. And often what survives is not the full story. Shall we look deeper? Let us continue. As the echoes of ancient step pyramids and forgotten empires fade into the wind, our journey continues southward into one of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth, the Sahara, a vast sun-bleached expanse of silence. Its golden dunes ripple, like an ocean frozen in time, concealing more than just heat and sand. Here, in the remote Pheasant region of southwestern Libya, the desert holds secrets. Secrets of a lost civilization that flourished where none should have, the Garamantes. To the untrained eye, this seems like the last place a civilization could take root. Temperatures soar past 50 C. Rain is almost non-existent. Yet, over 1,000 years ago, in the heart of this desolation, the Garamantes built cities, cultivated farmland, and thrived from above. The evidence is subtle but unmistakable. Straight lines cut across the landscape. Fogueras, ancient underground tunnels used to transport water from hidden aquifers deep beneath the sand. These channels stretch for hundreds of kilos, some still visible today, hinting at a level of hydraulic engineering that defies expectation. How did they know where to dig? How did they carve such precise tunnels without modern tools, without even the benefit of written technical records that we can find? Their capital city, Ghana, was once home to thousands. Archaeologists have uncovered multi-room houses, administrative buildings, and fortified compounds. These weren't nomads. These were urban planners, settled people, organized and efficient. For centuries, knowledge of the Garamantes came from Roman historians. To them, the Garamantes were a curiosity, fierce desert raiders who moved quickly and vanished into the sands just as fast. But modern excavations have painted a very different picture, not of marauders, but of a complex society with trade links extending deep into Africa and across the Mediterranean. They traded salt, gold, ivory, and even slaves. Caravans likely traveled under their protection, bridging worlds that would otherwise have remained separate. But as the mystery unfolds, questions grow. Some scholars believe the Garamantes didn't invent the Foguera system, but inherited it. Could it be that the Garamantes built their civilization on top of the remains of an even older one? One erased not by conquest, but by time and climate. Prehistoric. Rock art found throughout the Sahara depicts elephants, hippos, even lush vegetation and flowing rivers. These are not the images of a desert, but of a fertile, thriving land. Could the Garamantes have been the inheritors of forgotten knowledge, vestiges of a much earlier culture that lived during the Sahara's green phase before the desert swallowed it whole? Fringe theories suggest something even more provocative. Some propose the Fogueras and the Garamantian cities are not isolated phenomena, but part of a broader pattern linked to other ancient hydraulic systems found across North Africa, the Middle East, and even parts of the Andes. Could there have been an ancient network of civilizations sharing advanced environmental knowledge long before recorded history began? Others speculate about connections to lost cities mentioned in myth, Atlantis, or the land of Punt, suggesting the Garamantes may be one of many fragments scattered after a forgotten collapse. While mainstream archaeology does not support these claims, they persist, fueled by the unanswered questions that still surround these enigmatic people. By the 6th century CE, the Garamantes were gone. Their cities emptied. Their fields went dry. Was it environmental exhaustion, overuse of aquifers that could not replenish? Was it invasion or the slow decline of trade routes that once fed their wealth? Or was it something else? Something still buried under the dunes? Today, Garama lies silent. Its walls are worn by sandstorms. Its tunnels collapsed. And yet, the Sahara does not forget. With every satellite passing an archaeological dig, new clues emerge. Buried foundations, pottery shards, bones, inscriptions still waiting to be read. But perhaps the greatest mystery is not what we found, but what we've yet to uncover. What else beneath the sands? And how many stories have we yet to hear from a desert that once bloomed with life? As the sun rises over the rolling Andean mountains of Colombia, A soft mist clings to the land, slowly revealing a landscape of untouched beauty and ancient mystery. Nestled in the heart of this rugged terrain lies a region that once witnessed the rise of one of South America's most enigmatic civilizations, the Muisca. Their legacy, intricately tied to the legend of El Dorado, has endured through centuries, leaving behind a tantalizing trail of artifacts, ruins, and unanswered questions. The Muisca inhabited the high plains of the Eastern Cordillera, a vast plateau at over 2,500 meters above sea level. This was the heart of their empire, a land dotted with small villages, grand cities, and sacred sites. Among these, the most famous is the Lake of Guatavita, a shimmering body of water said to be the very birthplace of the El Dorado legend. Here, the Muisca performed rituals that would define their civilization's mystical allure. According to tradition, the Muisca's most powerful ruler, the Zipa of Bacata, would cover himself in gold dust, transforming into the Golden Man in a sacred ceremony on the Lake Dot. As the legend goes, this golden monarch would sail out onto the water surrounded by his court and throw treasures, gold, emeralds, and precious stones into the depths. The ritual symbolized a communion between the Muisca people and their gods, a way of offering their wealth and devotion to the forces they believed controlled life and death. But as alluring as this story is, what lies beneath it? Is there more to the Muisca's riches than mere ritual? Or could it be the key to a deeper, more profound mystery? When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the early 16th century, they were enthralled by the tales of a city of gold, a place where rivers flowed with precious metals and treasures were abundant. These stories would fuel their relentless search for El Dorado, a quest that would claim the lives of many and ultimately leave them empty-handed. But despite the fruitless expeditions, the myth of El Dorado has never truly faded, partly because of what the Muisca themselves left behind. The physical remains of the Muisca are scattered throughout the Colombian landscape. Most of their structures were constructed from wood and other perishable materials, leaving little evidence of their once great civilization. What we know of them, we gather from their exquisite goldwork, pottery, and textiles, as well as the accounts of Spanish chroniclers who came into contact with them. The Muisca people were highly skilled metallurgists, creating intricate gold objects that were not only works of art, but held significant ritualistic value. Among the most iconic of these treasures are the Muisca raft and the golden figure of the Golden Man, both of which have been recovered from the depths of Lake Guatavita. These artifacts hint at a civilization with knowledge of advanced metallurgy, far beyond what one might expect from a relatively isolated society. But where did this knowledge come from? Was it the result of local innovation, or could there have been external influences? Speculation about foreign contact has long been a subject of debate, with some suggesting that the Muisca might have been influenced by the ancient civilizations of the Old World. The golden offerings that once sank into the waters of Guatavita seem to speak to a people who understood the value of precious materials beyond their mere worth. The lake itself is more than just a body of water. It is a place of deep spiritual significance. For the Muisca, the lake was a living entity, a reflection of the cosmos, a threshold between the physical and spiritual realms. But the deeper mystery remains. Why did they choose to sacrifice such immense wealth only to let it disappear into the depths? Was it simply a ritual of devotion? Or was there something more to it? Could the lake hold secrets that have yet to be uncovered? In their attempts to retrieve the treasures from Guatavita, the Spanish left a trail of destruction. They drained the lake and carried away what they could. But much of what was lost in the murky depths remains beyond reach. Today, the lake still holds a quiet, haunting beauty, its waters shimmering under the Andean sun, as if guarding its secrets from the eyes of the modern world. The Muisca's use of gold is not the only element of their culture that remains shrouded. in mystery. Their complex social structure, religion, and worldview suggest a deep understanding of the cosmos, nature, and the human condition. They divided their society into several confederations, each with its own leader, yet united in their devotion to the sun, moon, and sacred mountains. Their religion centered around a pantheon of gods and spirits, with the sun god Zaur at the forefront. But how did these beliefs shape their daily lives? And what did they truly think of the gold they so expertly crafted? For years, historians have speculated that the Moises' extraordinary gold working skills might have been connected to their spiritual beliefs. But was gold simply a symbol of the divine? Or did it represent something more? Something that remains hidden in the depths of history? Was there a deeper reason for their ritualistic offerings to the lake? A reason that transcends material wealth and speaks to a knowledge we may never fully understand. As we piece together the fragments of the Moises story, we are left with more questions than answers. The golden treasures they created, the sacred ceremonies they performed, and the mysterious allure of El Dorado all point to a civilization whose true legacy may still be buried beneath the earth, beneath the waters, and perhaps even within the unseen folds of time itself. What were the Moises really after? Was their quest for gold about more than material gain? Could their rituals have been part of a larger cosmic narrative, one that we are only beginning to grasp? As the mists of Guatemala continue to rise and the golden artifacts remain silent in their glass cases, we are left to wonder what remains hidden in the shadows of the past, waiting to be uncovered. High above the plains of central Anatolia, nestled in the heart of modern-day Turkey, lie the ancient ruins of Hattusa. The remnants of this once great city, the capital of the Hittite Empire, are a silent testament to a civilization that flourished over 3,000 years ago. In the dry, sun-baked hills of this archaeological site, colossal stone walls stand as silent sentinels guarding the secrets of a people who once held power over vast waves of the ancient Near East. Hattusa was not just a city. It was the heart of a mighty empire that spanned from the Iron Coast to the heart of Mesopotamia. The Hittites, a people of Indo-European origin, carved their place in history during the Bronze Age, establishing one of the most formidable military forces of their time. Their empire rose to prominence in the 16th century BCE, and for centuries, their influence stretched across an area that would later become the cradle of great empires like Persia and Rome. Yet despite their dominance, much about their culture, their downfall, and their lasting legacy remains shrouded in mystery. The most striking feature of Hattusa is its monumental gates. These towering structures, such as the famous Lion's Gate, serve as a gateway to the past. They're intricately carved images of powerful lions standing guard, as if to warn any who dare approach. As visitors pass beneath these stone guardians, one cannot help but wonder about the world they once protected. What did the Hittites know of war, diplomacy, and power that we may have forgotten? The Hittites were masters of the chariot. Their warriors were feared throughout the ancient world for their speed and precision in battle. Their armies clashed with those of Egypt, Assyria, and the Mitanni. Yet they left behind few written records of their conquests. Most of what we know about them comes from uniform tablets, many of which were discovered in the ruins of their capital. These tablets contain treaties, royal decrees, and diplomatic correspondence, windows into a world where power was negotiated not just on the battlefield, but at the table of diplomacy. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Hittite civilization is their relationship with the gods. The Hittites practiced a complex polytheistic religion, worshipping a pantheon that included both familiar deities from Mesopotamian and Anatolian traditions as well as unique gods of their own creation. Among the most prominent was the storm god, Tarhan, whose power was invoked in times of war and peace alike. Yet despite their reverence for the divine, The Hittites' religious practices remain an enigma. Many of their temples and sacred sites have been uncovered, but the exact nature of their rituals is lost to history. What role did these gods truly play in their daily lives? And how did their divine beliefs shape the empire's decisions on the battlefield and in the halls of power? In the ancient texts of the Hittites, there is a recurring theme of divine retribution. The gods punish those who break oaths or act with dishonor. It is possible that these religious beliefs provided the framework for the Hittites' sophisticated legal system, one that emphasized both punishment and redemption. Yet, there are also hints within the records of a more shadowy aspect to their belief system. Some texts suggest that the Hittites may have practiced rituals that involved human sacrifice, although evidence for this remains sparse and open to interpretation. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding the Hittite civilization is the sudden disappearance of their empire around 1200 BCE. By the end of the 13th century, the Hittites had seen their power begin to wane, and by the following century, their once great cities were abandoned. The causes of their downfall are the subject of much speculation. Was it the result of internal strife, a weakening economy, or external threats from invaders like the Sea Peoples who ravaged the eastern Mediterranean? Or could it have been something more? A sudden, inexplicable collapse brought on by factors we still do not understand. The mystery deepens when we consider the possible connection between the Hittites and the wider ancient world. Scholars have long debated the influence of Hittite culture on other civilizations, particularly in the areas of law, diplomacy, and military strategy. Some have suggested that the Hittites may have passed on their knowledge to the Minoans, who in turn influenced the Greeks. Others point to similarities between Hittite inscriptions and later Egyptian texts, suggesting a shared cultural legacy that transcends national borders. But how far did this influence truly reach? And what might it mean for our understanding of ancient history? The Hittites were also known for their mastery of metallurgy, particularly in the production of iron. It is said that the Hittites were among the first to smelt iron on a large scale, giving them a distinct advantage over their rivals. Yet, despite this technological leap, their ironwork techniques remain somewhat mysterious. How did they acquire the knowledge to work with iron so early? And was this an independent development or the result of contact with other advanced civilizations? Some scholars have suggested that the Hittites may have learned their ironwork techniques from far-flung cultures, possibly through trade or event conquest. However, the lack of concrete evidence has left this theory open to interpretation. As we explore the mysteries of the Hittites, we are faced with more questions than answers. The grandeur of their cities, their military prowess, and their intricate religious beliefs all point to a people of great sophistication. Yet their sudden disappearance and the limited records they left behind leave us with an unsettling sense that there is more to their story, more that remains hidden beneath the earth, buried in the ruins of ancient Hattusa. What was the true nature of the Hittites' empire? How did their mastery of iron, their sophisticated legal codes, and their intricate diplomacy shape the ancient world in ways we have yet to fully understand? And most importantly, what remains hidden in the silence of their ruins, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to ask the hard questions? As we look to the past, we must wonder how many more civilizations, lost to time, are still waiting to share their secrets with us. The Hittites were also known for their mastery of metallurgy, particularly in the production of iron. It is said that the Hittites were among the first to smelt iron on a large scale, giving them a distinct advantage over their rivals. Yet despite this technological leap, their ironwork techniques remain somewhat mysterious. How did they acquire the knowledge to work with iron so early? And was this an independent development or the result of contact with other advanced civilizations? Some scholars have suggested that the Hittites may have learned their ironwork techniques from far-flung cultures, possibly through trade or even conquest. However, the lack of concrete evidence has left this theory open to interpretation. As we explore the mysteries of the Hittites, we are faced with more questions than answers. The grandeur of their cities, their military prowess, and their intricate religious beliefs all point to a people of great sophistication. Yet their sudden disappearance and the limited records they left behind leave us with an unsettling sense that there is more to their story. More that remains hidden beneath the earth, buried in the ruins of ancient Hattusa. What was the true nature of the Hittites' empire? How did their mastery of iron, their sophisticated legal codes, and their intricate diplomacy shape the ancient world in ways we have yet to fully understand? And most importantly, what remains hidden in the silence of their ruins, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to ask the hard questions? As we look to the past, we must wonder how many more civilizations, lost to time, are still waiting to share their secrets with us. As the sun sets over the desert landscape of southern Jordan, the ancient city of Petra slowly reveals its grandeur, its rock-hewn facades glowing softly in the fading light. This is a place that has long captivated the imagination, a hidden city, carved into the rose-red cliffs of the rugged mountains, where the echoes of a once thriving civilization can still be heard in the whisper of the wind. Petra, the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, stands as a testament to human ingenuity and mystery. A city so well hidden that it was lost to the world for centuries, only rediscovered by the West in the early 19th century. The most iconic feature of Petra is its rock-cut architecture, an intricate blend of Nabatean, Greek, Egyptian, and Roman influences. The city's stunning facades, such as the Treasury Al-Khazna and the Monastery Adair, rise majestically from the cliffs. Their elaborate carvings and columns offer a glimpse into the artistic and architectural sophistication of a people who built their homes and temples from the living rock itself. But despite the city's imposing beauty and the obvious skill of its builders, much about Petra remains shrouded in mystery. The Nabateans, who inhabited Petra from at least the 4th century BCE, were a people whose wealth and power were built on trade. They controlled vital trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula to the Mediterranean world, facilitating the exchange of goods such as spices, incense, and frankincense. Petra's strategic location, nestled between the Red Sea and the Dead Sea, made it an ideal crossroads for caravans traveling across the desert. But trade alone cannot explain the rise of such an advanced civilization. What made the Nabateans so successful? And why did their capital remain hidden for so long? In addition to their prowess as traders, the Nabateans were also exceptional engineers, particularly when it came to water management. The arid desert around Petra would seem an unlikely place for a thriving city. Yet the Nabateans mastered the art of collecting, storing, and channeling water. Complex systems of dams, cisterns, and aqueducts ensured that the city remained supplied with water even in the driest of seasons. This innovative water infrastructure allowed Petra to flourish for centuries, supporting a population that may have reached over 20,000 people at its peak. But how did the Nabateans acquire such sophisticated knowledge of hydraulics? Did they develop these techniques independently? Or could they have been influenced by other ancient civilizations? While the Nabateans' engineering skills are well documented, there are other aspects of their culture that remain elusive. Little is known about their language, religion, and societal structure. The Nabatean script, though an early form of Arabic, has not yet been fully deciphered, and many of their inscriptions remain cryptic. What we do know is that the Nabateans were deeply spiritual people with a pantheon of gods and goddesses who were often depicted in their art. These deities were closely tied to the natural world, with the Nabateans venerating celestial bodies, animals, and natural features such as the mountains and the desert itself. Could their spiritual beliefs have influenced the city's design? And if so, in what ways? One of the most enduring mysteries of Petra is its sudden decline dated by the 2nd century CE. Petra's fortunes began to change. The Nabatean kingdom was absorbed into the Roman Empire, and Petra's importance as a trade hub diminished. Over time, the city's inhabitants abandoned their homes, leaving behind a once thriving metropolis now frozen in time. Yet, while Petra may have fallen from political prominence, the reasons behind its decline remain the subject of much speculation. Was it the result of changing trade routes, the Roman conquest, or something more? Could there have been other more subtle factors at play? Climate change, resource depletion, or internal strife that led to the city's slow fade into obscurity? There are some who believe that Petra's fall was not just a matter of political or economic change, but that the city might have been intentionally abandoned. This theory posits that the Nabateans could have deliberately left Petra, possibly in search of new territories or to escape a catastrophic event such as a natural disaster or even a plague. However, there is little evidence to support this theory, and much of it remains speculative at best. Could it be that the Nabateans, masters of survival in the desert, knew something we do not about the fragility of their environment? As we move through the ruins of Petra, there is a certain haunting quality to the silence that surrounds us. The city may have been rediscovered, but it remains enigmatic. A place where the past seems to hang in the air like the dust that swirls in the wind. Many of Petra's structures remain unexplored, their full secrets yet to be uncovered. Beneath the surface, in the hidden chambers and crypts, could there lie further clues to the Nabateans' knowledge, their culture, or their ultimate fate? Perhaps most intriguing of all is the question of Petra's significance in the ancient world. The city's location at the crossroads of trade and culture suggests that the Nabateans were not only influential as traders, but also as cultural brokers, transmitting ideas and technologies between East and West. But how far did their influence truly reach? Did the Nabateans play a role in the development of early Arabic culture, or even in the rise of Islam centuries later? Could Petra have been a place of learning where scholars and merchants gathered to exchange not just goods but also ideas? As the last rays of sunlight fade behind the cliffs, we are left with more questions than answers. The Nabateans were a people whose legacy has left an indelible mark on history. Yet much about them remains hidden beneath the rose-red stone of Petra. What did they know? And what did they leave behind for us to discover? And as we continue to uncover the secrets of this ancient city, we must ask, what more lies buried in the sands, waiting to be revealed? High above the parched desert floor, nestled in the cliffs and canyons of the American Southwest, the ancient ruins of the ancestral pueblos stand in eerie excellence. The cliff dwellings at places like Mesa Verde, Cho Canyon, and Canyon Dealey are scattered across an unforgiving landscape. Their stone walls were weathered by centuries of wind and rain. From a distance, they seem almost like an illusion, impossibly perched within the rock, as though they were created not by human hands, but by the forces of nature itself. The ancestral Bolans, often referred to as the Anazi, inhabited the American Southwest for over 1,000 years. Beginning around 1000 BC and flourishing between 900 and 1150 CE, their communities were not confined to just the cliffside dwellings, but extended to vast multi-story pools such as those at Chachapoya Canyon, where thousands of people once gathered. These structures built from adobe sandstone and timber reveal an extraordinary level of sophistication. The sheer scale and complexity of their architecture suggests that the ancestral pueblos were not just survivors of a harsh desert environment, but a people with deep knowledge of the land, astronomy, and social organization. Yet, despite their achievements, Much about their civilization remains elusive. One of the most striking features of ancestral PBLON culture is their remarkable ability to blend architecture with the natural environment. The cliff dwellings, such as those at Cliff Palace and Mesa Verde, were built into the very rock faces, creating a sense of harmony between the les mende structures and the land. These dwellings were often accessed by ladders or narrow winding paths, and many had multiple stories and rooms, some of which were used for storage, others for ceremonial purposes. It is a landscape of staggering beauty, but also one that raises a question. Why build so high? And why in such an inaccessible location? The conventional explanation for these cliff dwellings is that they were a defensive measure, protection from hostile neighbors and the harsh elements. The ancestral Balkans living in an increasingly arid environment may have sought refuge from raiders or sought the high ground to shield themselves from the seasonal floods that sometimes ravaged the region. Yet this explanation does not account for the time, effort, and resources spent building such complex, elevated structures. Could there have been other reasons, more spiritual or ceremonial, that led to these awe-inspiring designs? What did the ancestral plans see when they looked out across the canyons from these high-perched homes? In addition to their architectural feats, the ancestral Balkans were also masterful in their understanding of astronomy. The ruins at Cho Canyon, for example, reveal a deep connection between the land and the stars. Large, precise circular structures called kas were used for ceremonies and likely had an astronomical purpose. The placement of these kas, along with the alignment of certain buildings, suggests that the ancestral plans were keenly aware of celestial events like solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles. The sky was not just a backdrop to their lives. It was a guide, an integral part of their worldview. Could the architecture of their communities, with its specific alignments and designs, have been a physical manifestation of their understanding of the cosmos? Did the ancestral plains see their cities as a reflection of the heavens themselves, designed not only for practical use, but for spiritual and ritualistic purposes? Or was there a more esoteric reason for the layouts of their dwellings and ceremonial spaces? Perhaps something lost to time. The greatest mystery surrounding the ancestral pueblos is their sudden disappearance from the region in the late 12th century. Around 1200 CE, these thriving communities seemed to vanish almost overnight. Evidence shows that the great pueblo of Cho Canyon and Mesa Verde were abandoned, and the once flourishing centers of culture and trade were left to crumble. What could have led to such a dramatic collapse of a civilization that had for centuries thrived in this harsh landscape? The mainstream explanation for their disappearance is a combination of environmental factors: droughts, resource depletion, and soil erosion. Indeed, evidence of severe droughts during the 12th century has been found in tree ring data from the region, suggesting that the ancestral Balkans were unable to sustain their agricultural systems as the climate became more arid. Their once reliable water sources may have dried up, pushing them to leave their homes in search of more hospitable lands. Yet, while this theory is widely accepted, it does not fully explain the abruptness of their departure. If drought was the primary cause, why did these people, with their vast knowledge of the desert, not adapt their systems to the changing climate? And why did they abandon their intricate ceremonial centers such as those at Cho Canyon, where elaborate roads and large-scale communal spaces suggest a well-organized society? Could there have been other more complex factors at play? Some speculate that the collapse of the ancestral Puebloan society was not purely environmental. Could internal conflict, social upheaval, or even warfare have played a role in their exodus? Archaeological evidence points to signs of possible conflict in some of the abandoned sites, with remnants of burned structures and weapons found at certain locations. Could the collapse of trade networks or shifts in power dynamics have precipitated A more sudden and violent end to the ancestral Ploans' golden age? There are more fringe theories too, suggesting that the people of the ancestral Bolan civilization may have been victims of more mysterious forces, perhaps even an unknown cataclysmic event. Some have proposed that the inhabitants of the Southwest were displaced by a natural disaster of extraordinary scale, such as a comet strike or a volcanic eruption, though no conclusive evidence has been found to support such claims. Another theory suggests that the ancestral Balkans may have left the desert in search of spiritual enlightenment or a divine calling, migrating to unknown lands in pursuit of something beyond the material. This theory is more speculative, but raises a fascinating question. Could there have been a deeper spiritual reason for the abandonment of their magnificent cities, one that transcended mere survival? As we stand before the silent ruins of their once great cities, we are left with more questions than answers. What drove the ancestral Balkans to build such extraordinary structures in the most inhospitable of places? How much of their culture, knowledge, and belief systems have been lost to the ages, hidden within the walls of these ancient dwellings? And what led to their sudden disappearance? Could the truth lie in the stars, in the hidden patterns of their cities, or in the ancient wisdom of the people themselves? Like the quiet, undisturbed canyons of the Southwest, the answers remain hidden, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. In the rolling hills of central Italy, where the land dips and curves in gentle, verdant slopes, ancient tombs and temples stand as silent sentinels to a civilization long gone, yet never forgotten. Here in the region once known as Etruria, the Etruscans, whose influence spread across early Italy, flourished for centuries before mysteriously fading from history, dot the city of Tyrrhenia with its elaborate tombs, and the monumental necropolises of Cerveteri and Veii hold the secrets of a people who once wielded great power in the Italian peninsula. Yet even today, much about the Etruscans remains enshrouded in mystery. The Etruscan civilization, which peaked between the 8th and 5th centuries BC, was one of the Mediterranean's most enigmatic cultures. Long before the rise of Rome, the Etruscans established a complex society that laid the foundations for what would later become the Roman Empire. Their cities were centers of commerce, culture, and politics. Their wealth was drawn from their advanced trade networks, which connected them with Greece, Egypt, and the Eastern Mediterranean. But unlike other ancient civilizations, the Etruscans left behind few written records, and the language they spoke remains only partially understood. What we know of their culture comes from the artifacts they left behind: beautiful tombs, intricate jewelry, painted frescoes, and mysterious inscriptions. One of the most striking features of Etruscan art and architecture is their vivid depiction of life, both mundane and spiritual. The painted tombs at Tarquinia, for example, are a window into the Etruscan worldview. Inside these tombs, the walls are adorned with vibrant scenes of feasts, dances, athletic contests, and music. These frescoes suggest that the Etruscans were a people who celebrated life in all its forms, yet also held a deep reverence for the afterlife. The tombs themselves were constructed to resemble houses, complete with furnishings and offerings, reflecting the belief that death was not an end, but a continuation of existence in a spiritual realm. But as we stand before these tombs, a question arises. How did a civilization so advanced in its artistic, architectural, and religious practices leave so little trace of its everyday life? The Etruscans' written language, though decipherable, in parts remains largely enigmatic. The texts that have survived are often short inscriptions, many of which appear as honorary objects, such as urns and itinerary jars. While scholars have made strides in translating these texts, the meaning behind many of the words remains elusive. What then did these texts say about the Etruscan society, their beliefs, and their identity? Was their language a key to understanding the cultural forces that shaped their civilization? While the lack of written records is frustrating, it is the Etruscan religion that truly deepens the mystery surrounding this civilization. The Etruscans had a polytheistic belief system, one in which gods and goddesses were intimately involved in the lives of mortals. Their gods were often depicted as human-like figures, sitting in judgment over the fate of individuals and cities. The practice of divination, particularly through the interpretation of omens in the flight of birds and the inspection of animal entrails, was central to Etruscan religious life. So integral was this practice that it would later influence the Roman method of augury. Yet the Etruscan pantheon is far from familiar. Many of their gods have no counterparts in later Roman or Greek traditions. Some, such as Tenia, the chief god, and Uni, his consort, are barely mentioned in later records, yet they were central to Etruscan worship. The Etruscans' strong connection to the divine was reflected in their art, as deities were often shown in scenes of judgment or interaction with human figures. It is in their religious practices that we find hints of something, perhaps even more profound. The possibility of an Etruscan legacy that transcends the physical world. The Etruscans' influence on early Rome is another intriguing aspect of their civilization. Some scholars argue that it was the Etruscans who taught the Romans many of their cultural practices, from religious rites to political organization. Rome's first kings, in fact, were Etruscan, and many Roman customs, such as the use of the toga, the layout of Roman cities, and the concept of urban planning may have been adopted from their Etruscan predecessors. Could it be that the rise of Rome and the eventual domination of the Italian peninsula was made possible by the Etruscan model of governance, which blended theocratic leadership with aristocratic rule? However, despite this influence, the Etruscan civilization eventually faded. By the 4th century BCE, the Etruscans were in decline, their cities gradually falling under the control of Rome and other powers. By the time of the Roman Empire, the Etruscans had disappeared from the historical record. Their language and culture absorbed into the fabric of the new dominant civilization. But why did such sophisticated and powerful people fall into obscurity so suddenly? Was it simply the overwhelming force of the growing Roman state? Or was there something more to their decline? Some suggest that the Etruscan decline was hastened by a series of internal conflicts and wars. The Etruscan cities, while prosperous, were often divided among themselves, and rivalries between different city-states may have weakened their ability to defend against external threats. Others propose that environmental factors, such as changes in agriculture and deforestation, may have played a role in their collapse. Could it be that the Etruscans, who had once thrived in a delicate balance with their environment, were undone by the very forces of nature they had so expertly manipulated? And then there are the more speculative theories. Some have suggested that the Etruscans were not merely an isolated civilization, but that they were part of a larger ancient network of advanced societies that spanned the Mediterranean and beyond. Could the Etruscans have had contact with other lost civilizations, such as those in Egypt, or even mysterious cultures of the Ion? Was their decline part of a larger global pattern of collapse, an event that is still waiting to be understood by modern scholars? As we stand among the remnants of their once great cities, the questions multiply. Who were the Etruscans truly? What knowledge did they possess? And how much of it was lost in the annals of history? Was their mysterious disappearance a quiet fading into obscurity? Or did something more dramatic, even catastrophic, occur? The Etruscans remain a riddle wrapped in the stone and soil of ancient Italy, one that continues to beckon for discovery. Even as time slowly erases their once vibrant presence, what secrets might still be buried, waiting to be uncovered in the shadows of their forgotten tombs? Deep within the rolling plains of modern-day Ukraine and Moldova, beneath the shadow of ancient undisturbed forests, lie the remnants of a civilization that once spanned vast territories. Known as the Cucutini Trilia culture, These enigmatic people left behind their marks on the land in the form of enormous settlements, vibrant pottery, and intricate art. Yet, despite their remarkable achievements, much of their story remains lost in the quiet, whispering winds of history. The Cucuteni Trillia culture, between approximately 5500 BCE and 2750 BCE, covering a significant stretch of Eastern Europe during its peak. Their settlements were often built on an unimaginable scale. Archaeologists have uncovered what can only be described as ancient cities, with some of these settlements housing tens of thousands of people, far larger than anything seen in Europe. At that time, the layout of these cities suggests an advanced understanding of urban planning. Streets were laid out in organized patterns, with circular or rectangular houses constructed from clay and wood. It is a sight both perplexing and captivating. How could such a sophisticated civilization emerge so early in human history? Among the most intriguing aspects of the Cucuteni Trillia culture are the vast ritualistic sites they left behind. The settlements themselves were not just homes and communal spaces. They were deliberately constructed and abandoned in a cyclical pattern. Several of these cities were burned to the ground, sometimes repeatedly. Some theorized that these fires were part of a ceremonial ritual, perhaps related to the idea of rebirth or purification. Could the culture have believed that by burning their cities, they were not destroying them, but rather renewing them for the future? The reasons behind such destruction remain speculative, but the recurrence of this pattern invites reflection. What drove these people to systematically rebuild their world over and over again? The people of the Cucuteni Trillia culture were also renowned for their exquisite pottery, the most distinctive feature of which was its intricately painted designs. These vessels, often adorned with spirals, geometric patterns, and motifs of plants and animals, reveal a people with an extraordinary sense of artistry. The vividness and complexity of their ceramics suggests that the Cucuteni Trillia were not only skilled craftsmen, but also had a rich symbolic worldview. The act of decorating pottery, creating something beautiful from the simplest of materials, may have been far more than just functional. It may have been a reflection of their spiritual and cultural beliefs. But what did these motifs mean? Were they simply decorative? Or did they encode hidden meanings, perhaps a language or religious code still lost to us? In their art, there are recurring depictions of the female form with statues and figurines of women that appear to be fertility symbols. These Venus figurines are often stylized with exaggerated features like large hips and breasts, symbolizing fertility, abundance, and life. Were these figures purely symbolic, or did they represent actual goddesses or revered ancestors? The prominence of female imagery in Cucuteni Trillia culture suggests that women may have held a central role in their society, perhaps even in leadership or spiritual guidance. Was the society matriarchal, or did it simply recognize the power and importance of fertility in life? It is a question that continues to elude definitive answers, but one that invites speculation about the spiritual and social structure of these ancient people. Despite these fascinating glimpses into their world, much of the Cucuteni Trillia culture remains shrouded in mystery. While evidence of their cities, their pottery, and their figurines are abundant, written records are virtually non-existent. What little is known about their language comes from the symbolism found on their pottery. But without a true understanding of what these symbols mean, much of their story remains a tantalizing enigma. What were their beliefs, their social customs, and their reasons for repeatedly abandoning and rebuilding their cities? One of the most perplexing elements of the Cucuteni Trillia culture is their sudden disappearance. Around 2750 BCE, after centuries of prosperity and growth, their cities were abandoned and the culture faded from the archaeological record. Some scholars suggest that the decline of the Cucuteni Trillia culture may have been due to environmental factors such as changing climate conditions, soil depletion, or a shift in agricultural practices. Evidence of overuse of the land, including deforestation, has been found at several sites, suggesting that their once thriving agricultural practices may have been unsustainable. Others propose that the migration of neighboring peoples such as the Indo-European steppe cultures could have contributed to the downfall of the Cucuteni Trillia. As the steppe culture spread westward, they may have displaced or absorbed the Cucuteni Trillia people. This theory raises the question: did the Cucuteni Trillia culture fall victim to external invasion? Or did they leave their cities for reasons of their own? Perhaps they moved on to new lands, abandoning their homes voluntarily. Or perhaps they faced a greater unknown threat. Then there are more speculative theories, ones that venture into the realm of the extraordinary. Some have suggested that the Cucuteni Trillia were a lost civilization with knowledge far beyond their time. Could they have possessed an advanced understanding of astronomy, geometry, or even architecture that we have yet to fully grasp? Some fringe theorists speculate that the designs on their pottery might encode astronomical or mathematical knowledge hidden in plain sight. Could it be that the Cucuteni Trillia were part of a greater network of ancient civilizations? Their knowledge and culture passed down through a now lost connection. Still, the mystery of their disappearance lingers. Were the Cucuteni Trillia an early example of a civilization that knew when to walk away from its glory, abandoning their cities to the earth rather than allowing them to crumble into ruin? Or were they swept away by forces beyond their control, climatic change, invasions, or internal collapse? As we stand among the remnants of their once great cities, the question remains: what truths lie hidden beneath the soil of Eastern Europe? What stories are locked within the spirals and geometric patterns on their pottery, waiting to be deciphered? The Cucuteni Trillia culture has left us with a legacy: fragments of their civilization, echoes of their beliefs. But the full story remains like the unfinished lines of their ancient pottery, incomplete. Perhaps one day, through further study and discovery, the mysteries of the Cucuteni Trillia will be revealed. But for now, we are left to wonder: what has time left behind? And what truths remain buried beneath the earth, beneath the wide-open skies of North America, across the vast and rugged landscapes of what is now the United States? There exists a mystery as ancient as the land itself. In the dusty plains beside the rivers and lakes, and deep within the forests, the traces of a people who lived thousands of years ago, long before the rise of any known civilizations, remain scattered, half buried in the earth. These traces are the remnants of the Clovis culture, a people whose presence was once widespread across much of North America and whose sudden disappearance has been a subject of intense intrigue. The Clovis people lived roughly 13,000 years ago during the tail end of the last ice age. Their name comes from the town of Clovis, New Mexico, where the first distinctive stone tools linked to this culture were discovered in the early 20th century. These tools, called Clovis points, are perhaps the most recognizable symbol of their existence. Crafted from finely shaped flint or CH, these spear points were designed with an unmistakable elegance. Their razor-sharp edges are perfect for hunting large game. Their use has led many to believe that the Clovis people were expert hunters, primarily focused on mammoth, mastodon, and other metaplana that roamed the North American landscape. Yet, despite the clarity of these artifacts, the story of the Clovis people is far from straightforward. The tools they left behind, often buried in layers of ancient sediment, have become markers of both their cultural brilliance and their enigmatic existence. The spread of these distinctive points across such a vast region of the continent suggests a people capable of wide-reaching travel and communication. But who were the Clovis people? What do we truly know about them? And what remains shrouded in mystery? Archaeologists have uncovered over 1,000 Clovis sites throughout North America, from the rocky terrain of the western plains to the forests of the east. At these sites, the Clovis points have been found alongside animal bones, some showing signs of human interaction, scavenging, butchering, and perhaps hunting. Yet, the narrative of the Clovis culture is not as simple as a group of early hunters moving across the land. What makes their story particularly intriguing is the suddenness of their appearance and their equally sudden disappearance. The Clovis culture lasted for only a few thousand years. By around 10,000 BCE, they seemed to vanish, leaving no direct descendants or continuations of their distinct way of life. What caused their sudden disappearance? Was it the environmental shifts that marked the end of the Ice Age? Or was it something more complex, something beyond the scope of the changes we associate with climate? The loss of the Clovis culture is all the more mysterious because during their time they left behind no clear evidence of warfare, no signs of violent conflict, and no direct evidence of societal collapse. Mainstream archaeologists have often proposed that climate change was a driving force behind the Clovis extinction. As the glaciers retreated, the environment changed dramatically, and the large megaplanet-like mammoths that had been central to the Clovis way of life began to dwindle and eventually disappear. This would have left the Clovis people struggling to adapt to a rapidly changing world. But this explanation, while plausible, does not fully satisfy the deeper questions raised by the Clovis mystery. Was the extinction of the megaplanet purely due to natural climate changes? Or did the Clovis people play a role in this mass extinction? Was there a deeper connection between the fate of the Clovis and the disappearance of these massive creatures? Some researchers have proposed an alternative theory, the so-called Clovis comet hypothesis. This theory suggests that a comet or meteor shower struck the posed an alternative theory, the so-called Clovis comet hypothesis. This theory suggests that a comet or meteor shower struck the Earth around the time of the Clovis extinction, causing widespread environmental damage. The impact of these celestial objects could have ignited fires, disrupted ecosystems, and led to a sudden shift in the climate, perhaps causing the megaplanet to die off along with the Clovis people themselves. Though the theory has sparked debate, it has not been universally accepted. Still, the idea of a cosmic event altering the course of human and animal history raises interesting questions. Could an external force have wiped out an entire way of life? And if so, what other mysteries might be hidden within the Earth's past? The evidence for this catastrophic theory remains inconclusive. So far, no direct impact crater or comet fragments have been conclusively linked to the Clovis extinction. But the theory persists, fueled by the discovery of an unusual layer of blackened material rich in iridium at Clovis sites, a layer that some have linked to the remains of a comet explosion. Could this be the smoking gun, the evidence that points to a cosmic event as the cause of the Clovis demise? Or is it, as some scientists suggest, merely a coincidence, an anomaly in the geological record? Another theory involves the possibility that the Clovis people were displaced by other groups. The notion of early human migration across the Bering Land Bridge has long been accepted as the primary route through which the ancestors of the Native American peoples arrived on the continent. However, some researchers suggest that a second wave of settlers or even multiple waves of migration could have occurred. This could have led to the gradual displacement or absorption of the Clovis people into other evolving cultures. In the more speculative realm, some have raised the possibility that the Clovis culture was not a singular entity, but rather part of a much larger, advanced network of early human societies. Could the sudden disappearance of the Clovis people have been a result of their involvement in a greater ancient global mystery. Were the Clovis, like other lost cultures before and after them, connected to a forgotten civilization that we have yet to uncover? If so, what remnants of their advanced knowledge and culture might still be waiting to be discovered? As we stand before the scattered remnants of their tools, the bones of the animals they hunted, and the vast landscapes where they once lived, we are left to wonder. Who were the Clovis people really? What did they know? And why did they disappear so abruptly? Theories abound, but the full story remains hidden beneath the sands of time, just out of reach. Was their sudden disappearance the result of environmental catastrophe or something more profound? And if the answers are not yet clear, what might still lie buried beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered by the next generation of explorers and historians? The mystery of the Clovis culture persists, its answers scattered like the points they left behind, sharp, intricate, and elusive. It is a story that continues to beckon for discovery, urging us to ask what might still be hidden in the ancient landscapes of North America, waiting for the light of understanding to reveal its secrets. In the highlands of northern Ethiopia, amidst the rugged terrain where the earth meets the sky, lies the ancient and once mighty kingdom of Axum. Today, the remnants of its capital, the city of Axum, are a quiet reflection of its former grandeur. But in its prime, from the 4th to the 7th centuries CE, this kingdom was a powerful force in the Horn of Africa and a hub of trade, culture, and religion. The stone obelisks that stand tall against the horizon, their surfaces etched with ancient symbols, are some of the most striking reminders of a civilization that, while thriving, seemed to vanish almost as quickly as it arose. The Axumite kingdom was strategically located along the Red Sea, acting as a bridge between Africa, Arabia, and the Mediterranean world. It was a land where cultures converged, where merchants from far-flung places brought spices, ivory, and gold, and where the kingdom of Axum flourished as a thriving center of commerce and power. The Axumites were master builders and engineers, constructing towering obelisks, elaborate palaces, and intricate underground tombs that still puzzle archaeologists today. One of the most remarkable features of Axum is its monumental obelisks. These towering stones, some reaching as high as 30 meters, are not merely decorative. They were crafted as tomb markers for the kingdom's elite. Their purpose was not only to honor the dead, but to symbolize the divine connection between the earthly and the celestial. How were these massive stones quarried, transported, and erected with such precision over 1,500 years ago? Was the knowledge required to build such structures passed down through generations, or did it emerge suddenly, as though from nowhere? The mystery of the obelisks is not just in their design, but in their sheer scale and the skill required to bring them into being. The kingdom of Axum was also a pioneer in coinage, minting its own currency as early as the 3rd century CE. Axumite coins made of gold, silver, and bronze bore the image of its kings and queens, and their inscriptions written in Jais, a Semitic language, attest to a civilization that was not only sophisticated in trade, but also deeply rooted in its own cultural identity. Yet, while the coins reveal much about the kingdom's economy and political structure, they also hint at a culture that may have been more interconnected with the ancient world than we can fully comprehend today. Was Axum a true beacon of African civilization, its influence stretching beyond the known world? Or was it, as some theories suggest, the linchpin in a global network of ancient powers? The people of Axum were also among the first in the world to officially adopt Christianity centuries before it became a despot in Europe. The conversion of King Anna in the 4th century CE is a pivotal moment in history. According to historical accounts, Anna's conversion was influenced by Christian missionaries from the Roman Empire, particularly from Alexandria. But the question remains, what other forces both religious and political, were at play during this period. Did the Aksumite kings seek Christianity as a means to consolidate power? Or was it an authentic spiritual transformation that aligned with the kingdom's ancient beliefs? And how did the conversion impact the culture of Aksum, intertwining its local traditions with the teachings of Christianity and leading to the creation of a unique Christian culture in the Horn of Africa that persists to this day? While Aksum's material wealth and religious transformation are well documented, the kingdom's eventual decline remains shrouded in mystery. By the 7th century, the once powerful empire began to fade, eclipsed by the rise of Islamic forces and the shifting trade routes that bypassed the Red Sea in favor of overland routes to the east. The fall of Aksum is often attributed to the growing influence of Islam in the region, which disrupted the kingdom's strategic position as a center of trade. But could there be more to this story? Were there internal factors such as political instability, environmental changes, or economic decline that played a role in Aksum's fall? Or was it the result of a sudden catastrophic event that no one could have predicted? Some have even speculated that the kingdom's downfall may have been tied to its over-reliance on the trade of luxury goods like ivory and gold, which might have become less profitable over time. Could the Aksumites have been victims of their own success as their wealth attracted both external threats and internal corruption? Perhaps even more fascinating than the reasons for its decline is the mystery surrounding the final years of Aksum. Historical records tell us that the kingdom's political and economic power waned over several centuries, but no definitive explanation exists for the precise cause of its collapse. As the Islamic Caliphate spread across the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa, Aksum's cities were abandoned. Its once bustling trade routes diminished, and its monumental obelisks fell silent. Yet, traces of Aksum's greatness remain scattered across the landscape. The ruins of its palaces, temples, and tombs still stand as silent witnesses to a civilization that once commanded the attention of the ancient world. In recent years, archaeologists and historians have unearthed tantalizing clues that suggest the Aksumite kingdom's legacy may not be as lost as once believed. Recent discoveries have hinted at the existence of other still undiscovered sites that could shed new light on the kingdom's culture, governance, and interactions with neighboring civilizations. Could these hidden sites hold the key to unlocking the final mysteries of Aksum? Were there secretive rulers or unrecorded events that have been lost to history? And what can we learn from this kingdom's rise, peak, and eventual fall that might speak to the timeless nature of human ambition and the fragility of empires? As we gaze upon the standing stones of Aksum, the question lingers: what other secrets are still waiting to be uncovered beneath the sands of time? And what was it about the kingdom of Aksum that allowed it to thrive, briefly touch the world stage, and then vanish from view? With so much still hidden, the mystery of Aksum remains, as it always has, just out of reach, inviting future generations to continue its exploration. The mist that clings to the rugged hills of northern Scotland tells the story of a civilization long since vanished. The land here is wild, untamed, a place where nature itself seems to have guarded its secrets. It is in this harsh and often unforgiving terrain that the mysterious Picts once thrived, an enigmatic people whose identity and legacy still elude historians and archaeologists to this day. Scattered across the landscapes of what is now Scotland, remnants of the Pictish presence are marked by standing stones, intricate carvings, and the enigmatic remains of their settlements. These stones, many of them adorned with abstract symbols, remain silent sentinels in the mist, their meanings still locked in the past. The symbols, stylized animals, abstract shapes, and mysterious motifs serve as one of the most tantalizing aspects of Pictish culture. What do these carvings represent? Are they mere decoration, or do they hold a deeper, perhaps even spiritual significance? Some believe they are markers of clan identity, while others suggest they are a form of communication, a language lost to time. The Picts themselves were people who seemed to live at the edges of history, leaving behind little more than these carvings and the ruins of their dwellings. What we know about them comes mainly from external sources, including Roman accounts and later medieval chronicles. The Romans who encountered the pieces during their attempts to conquer and civilize the British Isles referred to them as Picti, the painted ones. The name likely comes from the P's practice of painting their bodies with intricate designs, perhaps as a form of warfare or ritual, or simply as a mark of cultural identity. But how much of this portrayal is accurate? And how much is Roman exaggeration or misunderstanding? Unlike the Roman legions, the pieces left no detailed written records of their own. What we know of their language comes primarily from place names and inscriptions, many of which are still not fully understood. The Pictish language itself remains one of the great mysteries. Was it a Celtic tongue closely related to the Gaelic spoken by neighboring tribes? Or was it an entirely separate language now lost to history? Some linguists speculate that the Pictish language may have been an ancient form of a Brittonic Celtic language, while others propose that it was a language isolate, unrelated to any of the languages spoken in the British Isles at the time. Whatever the case, the absence of written records from the Picts means that much of their internal life, their customs, and their worldview remains hidden. The archaeological evidence we do have points to a people who were both isolated and deeply connected to their surroundings. The Picts lived in small, scattered communities, often in hill forts or in simple dwellings made of wood and stone. These sites are not large cities or monumental centers of power, but rather intimate, self-sustaining villages that seem to have existed in relative harmony with the harsh environment. Yet, despite this, the pieces were no strangers to conflict. Roman writings speak of their fierce resistance to Roman rule, and their clashes with the invaders were frequent and intense. The Picts held their ground for centuries, never fully conquered, their homeland remaining an independent stronghold at the fringes of the Roman Empire. One of the most striking features of the Pictish archaeological record is their art. The intricacy of the carvings on standing stones, some of which depict animals, others geometric patterns, and still others enigmatic symbols, suggests a culture that valued artistry and symbolism. Some of these carvings are abstract, while others depict scenes of daily life, offering a glimpse into the worldview of a people who lived in a deeply spiritual and connected world. The question remains, though, what did these symbols truly mean? Did they represent a belief system, a social hierarchy, or something else entirely? The lack of written records means that these stone carvings remain a cryptic language, one that modern scholars can only theorize about. It is also worth noting that the Picts appear to have had a complex relationship with their environment. They left behind remarkable earthworks and structures, including large circular enclosures and intricate stone carvings. The ceremonial site of Broger, for example, stands as a testament to their advanced understanding of architecture and construction. What was the purpose of these earthworks? Were they ritual sites, astronomical observatories, or defensive structures? The truth may never be known, but the complexity of these sites suggests that the Picts possessed a sophisticated understanding of their world and the forces that shaped it. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Pictish mystery is their eventual disappearance. By the 9th century, the pieces seem to have vanished as a distinct group. Theories about their disappearance abound. Some suggest they were absorbed into the larger Gaelic-speaking population as the Kingdom of Alba emerged, while others believe that Viking invasions may have played a role in their disappearance. But was the collapse of the Picts merely a case of cultural assimilation, or was there a more complex process at play? Did the Picts as a people simply dissolve into the larger currents of history? Or did they face a more violent or cataclysmic end? Given the lack of written records from the period, these questions remain open to speculation. Some fringe theories suggest that the Picts may have been part of an ancient civilization with ties to even older cultures, perhaps even those of Atlantis, or other lost ancient cultures. These theories, while not widely accepted, raise fascinating possibilities about the Pict origins and their place in the broader tapestry of human history. Could the pieces, with their intricate art and mysterious symbols, have been part of a much larger and older tradition of ancient peoples whose legacies have been obscured by time? Or are they simply a small enigmatic group whose story remains lost in the mists of history? As we stand in the shadow of the Pictish stones, the mystery lingers. Who were the pieces? What did their symbols mean? And what did their art reveal? About their society? Where did they go? And why did they leave behind only these cryptic remnants of their once great civilization? While some answers may never be fully known, the questions themselves continue to haunt the imagination, urging us to delve deeper into the past and consider what might still lie hidden beneath the surface of history. The Picts remain, as they always have, an enigma, a mystery wrapped in stone, still waiting to be unlocked. In the heart of the Indian subcontinent, nestled between the arid expanses of the Thar Desert and the lush greenery of the Indus River plains, lies the hauntingly quiet remains of one of the most advanced civilizations the world has ever known. The Indus Valley civilization. Today, the once thriving cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro lie in ruins, their streets and structures buried beneath the sands of time. The wind that sweeps through these ancient sites seems to carry whispers from an era long past, a time when the people of the Indus Valley built cities with remarkable precision and foresight, cities that were as orderly as they were enigmatic. Walking through the ruins of Mohenjo-daro, one cannot help but be struck by the advanced urban planning that characterized this civilization. Straight, wide streets lay in a grid-like pattern, a hallmark of foresight that many ancient cultures would not achieve for centuries to come. The buildings constructed from baked brick were not only durable, but engineered with an understanding of sanitation that was unparalleled for its time. Public baths, drainage systems, and even a sophisticated sewage network suggest that the Indus Valley people lived in a city designed with both practicality and hygiene in mind. But what did their cities truly represent? What did they know that we have only begun to understand? Despite its advanced nature, the Indus Valley civilization remains one of the great mysteries of the ancient world. Little is known about the people who lived here, their language, their governance, their culture, the writing system they left behind, etched onto seals and clay tablets, remains undeciphered to this day. The script is unlike any other, its symbols enigmatic and elusive, resisting all attempts at translation. What were these symbols? Did they represent a language of great complexity? Or were they part of a broader system of communication, perhaps even tied to ritual or religion? What makes the mystery of the Indus Valley even more compelling is the apparent disappearance of its civilization. By around 1900 BCE, the cities of the Indus Valley were abandoned, their streets empty, their buildings crumbling. Yet, the reasons for this decline remain unclear. Did the civilization collapse due to environmental factors such as shifts in the course of the river or changing climate conditions? Or was it a result of internal factors? Perhaps a breakdown in trade, social unrest, or political instability? Some speculate that the city's inhabitants were driven from their cities by invaders, but there is no clear evidence of any such invasion. Could the collapse have been more gradual, a slow unraveling brought on by forces beyond the people's control? Or was the fall of the Indus Valley civilization the result of something more catastrophic, An event so profound that it erased almost all traces of their once great society. The city of Harappa, one of the primary archaeological sites of the Indus Valley civilization, offers some clues here. The remains of what appears to be a highly organized urban center, complete with large public buildings. Granaries and storage facilities suggest a society capable of sustaining itself for long periods. The level of urban sophistication, however, raises further questions. How did such a civilization rise without any known monumental architecture? Like the pyramids of Egypt or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia? Instead of grand palaces or temples, the cities of the Indus Valley are marked by their functional structures, buildings designed for everyday life, trade, and commerce, yet lacking the typical markers of royal power. In Mohenjo-daro, the discovery of the so-called Great Bath further adds to the intrigue. This large public water feature built with sophisticated drainage and water management systems suggests that bathing or ritual purification played an important role in the culture of the Indus Valley people. Was this structure a place of religious significance, or was it a center for social and communal gatherings? The use of water for ceremonial purposes raises further questions about the Indus Valley's spiritual practices. Were they influenced by the natural world in ways that we still do not fully understand? But even as these questions swirl, perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Indus Valley civilization is the absence of its people's voice. Unlike their contemporaries in Egypt or Mesopotamia, who left behind inscriptions, records of kings, and grand monuments to their rulers, the Indus Valley people left behind only these silent traces, symbols carved into stone, buildings constructed with remarkable precision, and intricate artifacts that reveal a high degree of craftsmanship. Yet their language, their stories, their identity remain a mystery. Some fringe theories have sought to connect the Indus Valley civilization to even older, perhaps more mythical cultures, suggesting links to the lost continent of Atlantis or advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. While these ideas remain speculative and unsupported by concrete evidence, they nonetheless point to the possibility that the Indus Valley civilization may have been part of a much larger and perhaps far older tradition of ancient knowledge that stretched across the globe. Could the Indus Valley people have been influenced by ancient wisdom now lost to time? Or were they themselves the bearers of knowledge that transcended the confines of their cities, spreading out across the ancient world in ways we are only beginning to discover? Despite decades of archaeological work, many questions about the Indus Valley remain unanswered. How did they trade and communicate across vast distances? What was their religion, and how did it influence their daily lives? Why did they abandon their cities so suddenly, leaving behind their carefully planned streets, their intricate seals, and their extraordinary achievements? Was it simply the end of one civilization? Or was there something more profound that led to their disappearance? The more we uncover about the Indus Valley civilization, the more the mystery deepens. What hidden knowledge still lies buried beneath the sands of time, waiting to be rediscovered? And could there be a deeper connection between the enigmatic symbols of the Indus Valley and other ancient cultures, suggesting a shared history or a forgotten link that binds them together? As the dust settles on the ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, the silence is almost deafening. The question remains: will we ever fully understand the legacy of the Indus Valley civilization? Or will their story, like the symbols they left behind, remain an enigma, forever locked in the depths of the past? In the rolling savannas of central Nigeria, an ancient and enigmatic culture once thrived, leaving behind sculptures and artifacts that continue to captivate the imagination of archaeologists and historians alike. The Nok culture. The Nok people, who lived between 1000 BCE and 300 CE, are best known for their extraordinary terracotta figurines, many of which stand as silent witnesses to a civilization long lost to history. These intricate statues, often featuring human and animal forms, have been unearthed in various locations across Nigeria, revealing a society with a mastery of artistry and craftsmanship that far exceeded what was once believed to be possible for sub-Saharan Africa in ancient times. The No figurines, with their oversized eyes, elongated faces, and stylized features, have an almost haunting quality. These sculptures, made from clay and baked to a hard finish, are thought to represent deities, spirits, or perhaps even ancestors. Figures important to the spiritual and social structure of the Nok people. The sheer artistry of these works suggests a deep cultural complexity. Yet, despite numerous excavations, very little is known about the people who created them. What did these figurines symbolize? What was the belief system that animated them, and how did it shape the life and culture of the Nok civilization? The mystery of the Nok culture goes beyond their art. Although the Nok are believed to have been one of the earliest civilizations in sub-Saharan Africa to work with iron, creating iron tools and weapons that likely aided their agricultural and military activities, their technological advances were just one aspect of a much more enigmatic legacy. Little remains of their cities or settlements, and much of what we know about the Nok is derived from these enigmatic terracotta figures, a few broken pots, and the occasional iron object. What is particularly perplexing is the absence of written records or monumental architecture, typical hallmarks of other ancient civilizations. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, where the written word has allowed us to glimpse into their minds and hearts, the Nok have left only traces in clay and stone. What knowledge did they possess that has been lost to time? How did their society operate? Who were their leaders, their gods, and their ancestors? Without a written language, much of Nok culture remains shrouded in mystery. Yet, as we dig deeper into the remains of their civilization, new questions continue to emerge. How did a culture without written records manage to thrive for so long? The Nok people were highly skilled in ironwork, a technology that spread throughout West Africa long after their time. Was this a knowledge passed down through generations? Or did they independently develop techniques that would only later influence neighboring cultures? The skill with which the Nok sculpted their terracotta figures is another point of intrigue. The sophistication of their craftsmanship suggests an advanced understanding of both materials and techniques. Yet, it seems at odds with the scarcity of other material cultures. How were these sculptures created in such numbers, and what purpose did they serve? Were they connected to religious rituals, or did they have more practical uses in the daily life of the Nok people? Some researchers suggest that these figurines might have been used in burial practices, accompanying the dead into the afterlife, while others propose that they may have served as a form of ancestor worship, with each figurine representing a revered individual or spirit. Compounding the mystery is the fact that for centuries, the Nok culture remained largely unknown. It wasn't until the 1940s that these terracotta sculptures began to surface, and even then, much of the understanding of the Nok people's society and history remained speculative. The lack of large-scale excavation and the difficulty of tracing the origins of the Nok's advanced ironwork technology has left researchers grasping for answers. How did this culture develop the technological knowledge it possessed? And how did it influence the societies that came after it? One of the most compelling and unexplained elements of the Nok culture is their sudden disappearance. By around 300 CE, the Nok civilization, once thriving across central Nigeria, seems to have faded away. What led to their decline? Was it the result of environmental changes, such as shifts in the climate or soil erosion, which may have affected their agricultural practices? Could it have been a collapse brought on by internal social strife? Or were there external pressures? perhaps from other groups seeking the fertile land in which the Nok had flourished. Some suggest that the rise of neighboring cultures such as the Yoruba or the Kingdom of Ai may have contributed to the decline of the Nok, but no concrete evidence supports any of these theories. Still, the mystery of the Nok endures. Could there be hidden knowledge or a more profound understanding of their culture buried beneath the ground? The discovery of new Nok figurines and other artifacts in recent years suggests that there may be more to uncover. But what lies beneath the surface is still a mystery. The fact that the Nok people seem to have disappeared so suddenly without leaving a clear record of their fate continues to baffle scholars. Some fringe theories speculate that the Nok may have been part of a much larger interconnected network of ancient cultures, perhaps even tied to lost civilizations such as Atlantis or Egypt. While such theories remain speculative, they do highlight the possibility that the Nok were not isolated, but part of a broader cultural exchange across ancient Africa and beyond. Could the Nok, like other ancient civilizations, have been part of a forgotten global history? A civilization whose knowledge and influence were erased by the sands of time. The Nok civilization stands as a testament to the complexity and richness of ancient African cultures. Their terracotta sculptures, though captivating and beautiful, also serve as a reminder that much of the past remains hidden from view, waiting to be uncovered. As we dig deeper into the history of the Nok people, we are left to wonder, what did they know? And how did their civilization shape the cultures that followed? What mysteries yet to be revealed might still lie beneath the earth, waiting for future generations to discover?